Okay, we should be live. Um, Bear with me just a moment. And dramas, I suppose. The kid has only just gone to bed, so I'm not really set up at all. Hope the audio is all right. I hope the avatar is actually an avatar and not just a white circle. And good evening, everyone who's here already. So I'll just verify. Right, okay. Just checking on YouTube if the avatar is white. So um, keeping speed, Jack. Hopefully, it'll be a useful topic. It it kind of it applies to everyone really, in their own unique and various sort of circumstances, and something that can easily be overlooked because well, we'll get into the got a list of challenges. So Jr. Iridium Kush and Shadrach. Good evening, gentlemen. Um, this topic is actually inspired by one of the brothers here, and it's something that it's a direction I would like to sort of maybe take the channel in, where it's a little bit away from the narcissism and this still psychological but more therapeutical angle. I don't know if you want to call it like mentoring or counseling or something like that, or consolidations or something. But we're gonna I'll open up the panel later on in a little bit, and if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to join on and discuss things, get it out the system, to purge, to cleanse, um, you'll have the opportunity to do so. And maybe we can have some what we would refer to as breakthroughs in the recovery sort of field of to initiate a call to action, but on a personal, on your own personal level, Um, I mean, I say that with a caveat because really, when it comes down to it, you shouldn't need something like this to motivate you into putting your self care first. Um, you might need it in a sense to because it's uncharted territory, you're unfamiliar with it, and you're still reliant to some degree, perhaps with codependency, to have someone kind of kick you off the backside to do it. But after a while, really, it should be your own prerogative to put your self care first. So I'll begin mainly with saying, um, you deserve happiness, and that's something you need to say to yourself. You don't need to hear it from me, but in your mind, articulate the words that you deserve happiness. You deserve to be happy. This isn't some flippant or whimsical statement. It's meant to be something profound inside you, and carrying such a sentiment hopefully it should, if you're able to hold on to this, um, keep you going. It will be like the first step, because you will be in a world, a mental landscape of unknowns, uncertainty. Um, so if you can hold on to whatever kind of happens, that at the core you recognize that you've already been through enough. This isn't comparing apples and pears with one another. From your own personal perspective, you've already been through hell. You've already sacrificed. You've already been a doormat. How much more? And this is the area of conditioning we will be tackling in more detail. And it's about time, even though you might not feel like you deserve it, that you have to kind of uh, go against this conditioned mindset that you may have, that you feel like you don't deserve it. All the more reason why, even if you don't believe it, you do deserve to be happy above all else. especially if you've got aspirations to want to try and help other people or help your children. You're not going to be effective if you are neglecting the starting point, that being with you. So a lot of inner self-work tonight. Angler, good evening, and Silver Bullets, good evening. Glad to have you all here. So I think I've got a few notes, but I'd like to maybe begin with a couple of more. See, I sure last stream I was saying I wanted to depersonalize. I was putting too much of myself out there, but see, old habits are hard to break, eh? So I had two sort of stories I wanted to tell. One, I had a doctor's checkup recently, and then this evening it was kind of case in point. So the doctor's checkup is a diabetes checkup. Take my bloods, ask me how I'm doing, and before I arrived at the clinic, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be totally honest. And when they say how you doing, I'm going to tell them that I'm not particularly enthusiastic for today's clinic. I don't really care for the results. I already know that my control hasn't been good in the last since the last appointment. So I expect my sugar levels to have risen. And I know that they're going to try and ask me if I want gadgets to, like, one of them is called like a Libre to monitor. It's like you're tagged with a sensor. Instead of having to do finger prick blood tests, you just got a sensor stuck to you that it's meant to be convenient and easy. That can kind of monitor your blood sugar throughout the day. And another gadget is an insulin pump. So instead of having a daily, I'm not sure how long the what do you call it? It's like a catheter, but you've got this needle. Instead of a metal, it's like a plastic needle connected to the pump. I'm not sure how often you have to change it, but it's supposed to give you as close as you can to having an actual pancreas again. You can adjust it's pumping insulin throughout the day instead of you having to give yourself an injection. So it's theoretically meant to give you better control. But I don't want any of this gadgety stuff. And they don't seem to like that. So they keep trying to force it on me. So I was ready for a sort of bad news and aggravation. And they're trying to, they ask me like why. I give them an answer. But my main answer is sort of like, I don't want to be constantly reminded that I'm a diabetic by having these devices attached to me. I don't want to be a robot, But my answer doesn't seem to satisfy them, and they carry on trying to sales pitch this stuff on me. And they're talking about, like, that they're revealing to me, like, yes, indeed, your sugars have gone up. We're like, what seems to have been the problem? Like, I'm like, lately, I just haven't been feeling like bothering too much with my diabetes. I mean, the last I describe it as 2 steps forwards, 1 step back, because in previous appointments, my control was getting tighter. It was getting better gradually. And this is generally the way they don't want a sudden drop, because that can have problems of its own. So a gradual improvement is like, oh yeah, you're gradually doing better. So I was just like, well, I've been putting a lot of effort in, and yeah, things were getting better. And I don't know, just for the last few months, I've just been fed up with having to keep on top of it and continually trying to make the control tighter and tighter and tighter. I just want to sort of be a bit carefree And it hasn't been making me feel any better, because when your sugar levels are high, it makes you feel exhausted. Been having a lot of foot cramps. This doctor said that your frozen shoulder is likely a result of having high blood sugar. And I'm like, because it's more common in type 2 and people in an older age. So for me, type 1 at my age, to have a frozen shoulder is like not a good sign or something like that. It's like, oh, your sugars are completely out of control. So I'm kind of getting a lecture about how important it is, and I'm like, this is the point. It's this you'll make. I know the doctors aren't trying to do this, but you're making me feel worse about myself, because if I am to improve my sugars now, it wouldn't be for my benefit. It wouldn't be because I want to. It would be because you want me to. And that is the baseline that I'm trying to convey over, which is, that's why I don't want any of these devices, because if I've got the motivation as well, then it wouldn't really matter what the regime is. You can give me a syringe the size of a javelin. If you had the desire and a motivation to want to actually look after yourself, you're going to do it regardless of what it takes to do what it is you need to do. So I don't want things to make it more convenient for me. I want the esteem to actually want to do it. And then they're like, oh, but think about your children and all this. I'm like, yeah, but that's still the same kind of thing. I mean, obviously, yes, you want to be there. I want to see my child, be there for my child and see her grow and everything like that. But it still comes down to like whether or not I actually want to do it for myself. I was like, oh, so would you like to see the counselor? Would you like to see the psychologist? I'm like, not really. I already know the area that needs attention, and it's something beyond the doctor's scope of control, and it's beyond the therapist and counselor. You know, when I've had talks with them before, they can see, they can hear that it's like, oh, you've done research, you know about psychology, you know what's going on. It's the bridging the gap between the cognitive and connecting it to the emotional. So even though you might know what needs doing and you know where the problem is, logic versus emotion is going to win. So it highlights more and more that despite me preaching or whatever, I have to acknowledge that I have emotional needs that I need to meet, and they're not being met. So I don't feel happy. I don't feel joy, or I don't feel worth caring for myself in a way that I deserve and how I should. And as a result, you can see why, therefore, then I'm going to put the looking after the diabetes on the back seat instead of at the forefront of every activity I'm doing. So it's a little bit hypocritical of me to say, like, let's talk about self-care, and there I am not really doing that, and haven't really done so for my whole life, essentially. And we see this pattern, or not pattern, but a trend that like when you're young, it's like caution to the wind, and it's only when you're older do you realize, like, yeah, I think no, I need to get on this more. But as I was saying, with the 2 steps forward and the one, I mean, I suppose I was, maybe I'm deluding myself. I was to some degree, improving my health. But in the last few months, maybe it brings into question like endurance, and this is where things start to slip. And with something like diabetes, you don't notice the decline immediately. It's gradual, like boiling the frog. So only when it actually gets to a certain point do you realize, ooh, we've slipped some way now. Of course, correction was needed long ago to avoid this. So that's the general first thing I wanted to talk about, is having that realization that you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to have that effort and commitment. You kind of, as much as you might like to think that you owe it to other people, you owe it to yourself, and only you can give it to yourself. So simply having that conversation with the doctor was enough for me to remind myself, don't forget the goal, don't forget what we're going towards, don't forget that it is worth it, you are worth it, and it's a process of delayed gratification. You're not going to notice it in the beginning, and you're not going to really understand or appreciate why you're even doing it until some time has progressed, by which point you can look back and be like, yeah, all that commitment, effort, and energy and attention is making a difference, and I am happier for it. So that at which point you can kind of give yourself a pat on the back or whatever. So then you can sort of maybe ask, not that it's something you should dwell on, but why might someone who was making small strides to better themselves, why would they drop the ball, or why would they, not be as attentive? Makes you start to think about, well, where have you been spending your time, or where is your energy being directed or pulled away? What kind of stressors are factoring in? So what I need to do in terms of recollection is think, well, I've been getting pretty agitated with the school. I've been participating in school trips. My kid's behavior, I'm finding it harder to structure her life. She's becoming more like defiant in a way. She's struggling, and I don't want to be blaming her as a reason for me losing my temper. With me and her, as much as it's good to have individualism and be independent, unfortunately, I think we're very heavily tied together. How I feel affects her, and how she feels affects me. Obviously trying to be careful of like enmeshing identities and still having separate lives. And then I was having flashbacks of listening, thinking of times when I was getting pretty peed off. And straight away I thought, that bloody autistic specialist. Curses. And I'm like, Yeah, because and the teaching in general, it's like with it harping on with these social justice issues. Oh, save the planet, stop racism, eat your vegetables, do the homework, stop sexism. It's this constant message of like what have I done wrong now? I'm not good enough. Everything I do, I seem to, you air quote like society or whoever seems to want something, and I'm failing. And the autistic specialist is saying the same thing. Like your child needs structure. She needs to have this visual chart where she can have little flashcards saying, "Now we're going to do this," and then next will be this, to make it really simple for her. And I'm just thinking, yeah, I understand that for an autistic person, structure is wonderful. It helps relieve the anxiety and stress, and helps to keep the mind on a sort of track instead of getting carried away with itself. But I have a regime as well. I'm a diet. Like stability is a good thing for me as well. But it seems like the kid, and for good reason, like the kid structure is important. But this is why, I mean, it might help if I actually say to this specialist that, like, hey, just so you know, I have diabetes, so that needs to also be factored in here. But it makes the dynamic between father and daughter here, because she has her regime, her structure, and I have mine as well. And if I'm gonna, this is why it's important for me to be a bit selfish. And the doctor was saying this, the diabetic doctor was saying, yeah, you need to be a bit more selfish, because you're not going to be a very good dad if you've got your legs cut off or something like that, because your diabetes are out of control. But oh no, the example she also gave was, when an aeroplane is crashing and you got the oxygen mask, the instructions is you put it on yourself first, because otherwise you can't save anyone. So as much as you might want to be there to be a shoulder for people, fellow brothers even, and all this, you have to it really does, you have to put yourself in a selfish way, not in a derogatory, like, you evil, selfish bastard kind of thing. You're thinking of yourself first. No, it's kind of like, I need to look after myself if I'm going to be of benefit to other people. So you do need to, and that includes children, So this appointment, this reminder was only it was on Thursday, so it's only been a couple of days, and as, like, I'm sure it's kind of common for most people, but diabetes is a very emotional experience. As your sugar changes, your how you feel changes. So if you've got high sugar, which I have been having, it's also no surprise that I could be a bit more triggered or angry or get riled up, more frustrated, because you don't feel good. So you get more like angry. And in the opposite way, if my sugar was very low, you can appear as though you're kind of drunk, because you're sort of going a bit gaga. And you can feel a bit energetic. So it's that sweet spot in the middle where things work the best. But that's why it becomes a vicious cycle in a way. So as the sugars were going up, maybe I was becoming more angry and frustrated with myself. But instead of catching myself in the moment and being like, whoa, I need to, this is a signal for me to actually look after myself, instead beat myself down some more and be like, I'm useless, find some confirmation from society to tell me that I'm useless. And then you can see that, well, I ain't going to bother with my diabetes then. And that makes it worse and worse. And it's a vicious spiraling circle. So I'll try and keep an eye on the chat, because you guys might say something that needs either addressing or answering, or okay. Angler says, I want to say to you, so I want to say to so many of you, is this good enough for you? Okay. Is this good enough for you? Ooh, it sounds like something, there's more to this question. Are you saying that, Angler? I want to say to so many of you, am I good enough for you? I'm not sure if that's what you mean by the question. And this is as a point there with what Angler is saying, like feeling like you're. This is why I have one of my quotes. You know, if ever you hear someone say this, that they're ripping it off from me. Being enough, emphasis enough, being enough is perfectly okay. Now, do you see what I did there? It's kind of tongue in cheek, because of this perfectionism. I must be the best. I must be perfect. I have no flaws. Well, it's like, well, if you're so adamant that you want this perfection, then being enough is perfectly all right. So I hope you you understand. You don't need to be perfect. You just need, you already are enough. And that's why we already have everything we need. We can be happy, it's there. It's that connection between the cognitive and the emotional, between logic and emotions. And don't worry, I haven't forgotten. We're gonna get into why it can be, even though you realize what's going on, you have this compulsion to self-harm, because that's what it's going to come down to, realizing it's like, shit, you mean I'm actually self-harming when I'm not looking after myself and doing the things, and when I'm beating myself down with this victim mindset, I'm actually, this is kind of like, these are the sins we see in other people. We see the woke, they're so victimhood. They're ruining their lives with this mentality. But it's like, hang on a second, I'm not far off. I'm very similar in a way. I might not be blaming the world, but instead I'm blaming myself. And in some ways, I might be even worse. So it's good. And RP Pope's joined us. Good to see you, sir. Okay, so that's the general gist of my first story. My second story is a bit shorter, so we'll get through that quickly. So today, how was my day today? God, torture. It seemed like, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad I'm here with you guys. Hold on. Like my little bit of respite. It's been a bit annoying. So the increases in bills have been like, oh my God, astronomical. I'm like, 85 quid for this month's electricity. I'm like, damn. So it's like, right, I'm gonna switch off the boiler. I'm gonna, like, what can I unplug? Maybe I have to switch to like some energy saving light bulbs or something like that. And this spare laptop that I had bought initially for my kid, I'm thinking I might have to confiscate it and use it for myself, because I normally, like, what I'm talking to you guys right now on is a desktop machine with a separate monitor plugged in. So I'm thinking, I don't know how many watts of power it's using, but probably far more than a laptop would be. And I don't really want to have to switch over, but it means I might have to make my main computer like redundant or put it into hibernation or something, and try and switch over to a laptop. So palaver that I don't really want to have to do. And there was, my kid turns around because, like, she wants to go to this indoor playground, and I'm like, and she's made arrangements with one of her friends. So I'm contacting this friend of hers, asking the parent, is this true? Like, if you want, we can go to this indoor playground. I could pick you up. And this parent recently had an operation, so I offered, like, if you want, I could just take your kid, and you can have some rest time or quiet time or whatever time for yourself. I'll take care of the kids and I'll take them to the indoor playground. But she turned around and said, no, there's actually been a birthday party, so they weren't able to do it. But for my kid to hear this for me to relay this information over to my kid, she had already kind of made the affirmation in her head. She was already certain, like, yeah, we're going to be going to the indoor. And it's like, sorry, no, it's not. So she wasn't happy about that. And then she turned on the TV, couldn't find the remote control after a while. Like, she watched a bit of TV, couldn't find the remote control. So decided to basically turn her bedroom upside down, and then still complain that she can't find a remote control. And, I'm just like, oh my God, it's like the waste of effort. The amount of times I'm having to pick up paper all over the place, stepping over things, like, and I'll say to her, come on, give me a hand, help tidy up. This is your room, we're doing it for you. And her idea of tidying up is just pick up some stuff and lob it over the other side of the room, make it even worse. So it was becoming more and more of a stressful day today. And then starts coming the sort of like silly arguing with me. She kind of on the Friday when I picked her up from school, she was crying, and I didn't know at the time why. After a little bit of time, I found out it was because of a particular boy pushed her. But this evening, I actually found out why this boy pushed her, and it was because he had said, like, you're annoying me. So I guess my kid was annoying the boy, and so the boy pushed her. So I don't know, maybe I was being a bit mean. I was like, oh, so here I was telling you that, hey, everything is all right, and I'm sorry that happened to you. You're telling me really I need to be apologizing to that boy because you were annoying him? So I'm trying to, I was wrong for me to have said, but I'm trying to also convey the idea that, how you behave has consequences. Like, if you're going to be screaming at me, demanding that you want to go to this indoor playground earlier, and this is how you're going to behave, then the answer is going to be no. I ain't taking you anywhere if you're going to be like this. Which, upon hearing such things, made her get even more upset and angry. So from being angry and screaming and taking her frustration out, she's crying and blaming herself. And I don't blame her. I can see why and I'm like, no, what am I doing? I'm beating myself up again, like going, oh, I'm effing this up. and the day's just dragging out. And I'm just thinking, come on, get ready for bed, and it's just not happening until eventually, before like 5-10 minutes before coming live on the stream, finally I think she just exhausted herself. But even then, she's still like, I want to draw while I'm sleeping. It's like, well, good luck trying to do that. But how about you go to sleep first, and then you can see if you can draw. So let's keep this. Mr. Hemi's here. Good to see you. And Reviving Real News. Good to see you as well, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us here. So let's go through some of these notes, and then I can open up the panel. Otherwise, we'll be here all night long. Okay. All right. Let's see. Now, with the title of the stream, self-care and colon obstacles. So there might be some more streams in the future around self-care, but we're going to be looking at the obstacles side of things. There's a little bit of a trick here, because when I say obstacles, you might have heard me say before that emotions are signals. They indicate, they're messages. They're trying to tell you something. When you feel a certain way, there's a message behind it. It's not for no reason that you have this emotion. It would be if it had no, it'd be a waste of an emotion. So there's a message. Same with these obstacles. So whatever obstacle you think, whatever obstacle that comes to mind that you think is preventing you from attending to your self-care, is a message telling you what needs addressing. So you've already got, before we've even begun, you've already got a system in a way built into you to help you out. You've got an ally in this regard. And it's kind of like a playbook. If you manage to sort of put this the emotional impact to one side just temporarily, and look at it from a logistical point of view, it will tell you step by step every area that needs addressing. And you'll probably think like it's an area that's been neglected, but we don't need to be beating ourselves and be like, oh, I'm neglecting things. It's just like, no, this is what needs. These are areas that attention needs to be directed towards. So this makes it very handy in a way. It might even make it sound a bit too simplistic, but in our emotional state, it's not. We overcomplicate it. We if we're honest, we'll realize that we kind of intentionally put these obstacles there in order for us not to have to address what's really going on. And that's why, if we stop the lying to ourselves, the denial, and treat it more pragmatically with honesty, we can actually like gradually churn our way through it, and it might not be as bad as we actually make it out to be. And then we might be surprised that it's like, oh yeah, it really is. Now I understand when people say like, treat yourself with kindness, a short sentence, or have some self-love. Now I can have a new profound understanding for what that really means. It's not just a coin of a phrase that's just said without any substance. It's like a loaded phrase. It has much more core meaning to you, because you, by this point, you would have done the work, and you realize, yeah, it does actually just come down to treat yourself better, or you deserve happiness, or love thyself. Not just know thyself, but love thyself. But we're at this stage, most likely, we're not there yet. So that's a little bit of like hopeful, like, I don't want to say optimism as if like it's a hope that's not going to happen. It can happen if you want it to happen. It's available. It's there for you. But you really won't know until some time until you've made some progress. So it's something to, even though you might not believe, you have self-doubt, you think it sounds a bit hippy-dippy or la-di-da, still, it's something you can train your eyes, like focus your targets onto. It's like, no, we're not pursuing something aloof. There is actually a reason. We're trying to reach a pinnacle. Okay, so a few quick points here. So you probably already mentioned it earlier. You're probably not even realizing how self-harming this lack of attention is. You might have some acknowledgement of it. Like you realize, yeah, like how I treat myself isn't very good. But again, to really understand or to really appreciate just how much this self-harm is devastating, you're not going to see it while you're in it. You'll see that. You'll understand that better once you've made progress. And you'll realize, damn, at the time I thought I was treating myself bad, but now that I've got a wider, I see the landscape better, or I have a better perspective. Yeah, it's very upsetting, unfortunate, and that's why I started off with saying, like, you've already been through a lot of pain, and you're continuing. If this is how things are for you right now, you're continuing with sacrificing yourself when it doesn't need to be. Especially if you realize that you're putting your self-care in the hands of other people, and you realize they don't even love you, they don't really care about you. So why you're sacrificing yourself for what? For crumbs, if you're lucky. And when you can derive it from your inner self, or the self-validation, not only is it a more abundant quantity, but the quality of that validation is so much greater than anything anyone else could possibly give you. And again, you realize that it was already, it's not something far away you have to go running for. It's already there within your reach. We already got everything we need. We just need to know how to gain access to it and then utilize. So along with this self-harming, that would mean there is also self-sabotaging. You might not know what these mechanisms are at this point. You just need to be aware that there'll be patterns of behaviors, habits, little tricks that your mind will play that will prevent you from accessing that self-care. So there are elements of self-sabotaging. It could be quite literal self-sabotaging, like someone who decides to, I don't know, they're gamblers or something like that, and they're just risk takers and caution, or it could be more subtle and insidious. So this is where the honesty part of it and trying to not allow your emotions do the thinking for you, you'll be able to start seeing the ways in which you sabotage yourself. Or a good one would be like, not good, but a good example would be like intentionally provoking someone so that they start shouting at you, so that you can then be unhappy with yourself, and then you're involved in a fist fight or something like that, and then you'd be like, oh no, that's why I'm not looking after myself. So for that point there, or self-harm / sabotaging, you need to have that little out of body experience to sort of observe that self-reflection, to observe with authenticity what it is you're actually doing. Don't be BSing yourself here. If you're BSing yourself, that is adding to the self-harm. And you can keep this personal. Like, you don't need to be sharing this information with anyone. Like, it could be your little secret that no one else knows. But the point that, but that's what matters. Once you can acknowledge that you do some of these things that you might not be too proud of, you might feel ashamed. That doesn't mean you're scum and no wonder you're in this situation. This is like the healthy kind of shame. It means, like, you can't address a problem if you have no idea that there is a problem. So the acknowledgement, the admission to realize, I see now. Now comes the next sort of big question. What do you want to do about it? You can't hide anymore. That's one of the, if I was to have a character trait, that's I would like to think that would be one of my ones, where it's like, I hate denial. I really don't like lying to myself, because it doesn't sit well with me. Now, once you have that realization, you would have to intentionally, you would have to consciously know that you are lying. How are you going to lie to yourself if you consciously know that you're lying? But sometimes you have to kind of, in a way, outsmart yourself. You need to know how your mind will play tricks on you if you let it, and you need to sort of kind of like see past it. Anyway, let's jump forward a bit. So, with how you've gone throughout your life, there's a good chance you probably don't even know how to self-care at this stage, because you're so used to exporting that onto other people that you don't even know what self-care really looks like. And you might misinterpret that as well. You might think self-care, oh, what you mean pamper myself? What you mean, instead of watching my diet, I should I don't know, take supplements as well? It's like, well, maybe, but the point I'm trying to make here is that try not to sell yourself short, as if like, oh, you mean I haven't been getting enough sleep, so I should just sleep some more, and then bingo, that's my self-care taken care of? It's like, no, that might be just one of many things that you need to make changes to in order to have a good level of self-care. Yeah. Yeah, so don't think you can be cutting corners here. There are a lot, and this kind of laziness will be like a part of the obstacles, because you already know that self-care is going to take some effort, right? It's going to take some commitment. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be something you're probably not really going to like having to do, at least in the beginning. And here you are wanting to sort of be like, oh yeah, today I treated myself and I bought a thing, and I ate out nice, and I took a nice long hot bath, and I had a bit of sleep. And it's like, well, okay, that's all nice and good. Yes, it's good to sort of do a little bit of pampering. But what are you going to do tomorrow? And the next day? Are you going to be like this every day? So just because you do a couple of things doesn't mean you're really attending to your self-care. And you could also be doing it, if you're not careful, to air quote, like, to shut other people up. Like, so going back to my doctor's appointment, it's kind of like, I might improve my sugar level next time I see her, and the doctor might look at me and be like, "Oh, I see you've improved your self-care." But if my mentality is still the same, then I haven't really improved my self-care. I've just done things to shut her up. So along with not knowing how to self-care, the next point here is probably, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a strong sense of guilt for wanting to care for yourself. And that's going back to, like, not feeling like you deserve it. So before you've even begun to look at your self-care, you're already feeling guilt for even thinking about, like how dare I even think about caring for myself, putting myself first. I must be such a selfish son of a SOB because of it. And that's like, these are the uh these are the mind tricks that we're playing with ourselves here. And it is false. Obviously it's false. Like, feeling guilty about caring for yourself is as far away removed as you could probably be. I mean, it sounds kind of silly, but as silly as it sounds, like I know this phenomena I know exists, and I know it to be true because I've experienced it. I feel wrong about like guilty, as if, how dare I not be thinking of other people and be thinking of myself first. But as we've already covered, it's important, even if you were wanting to help other people, like reiterating the point, you do need to be a little bit selfish here. So feeling guilty, this construction or way of thinking, is a very abusive type of self-harm, because it's almost like if this is what you're going to lead with, you haven't got a hope in hell of actually making any improvements, because because how are you going to feel good about yourself and feel the benefits if before you even started you feel like you're committing a crime? Thou shalt not heal, so saith the narcissist. And don't, yes, that there is narcissistic elements throughout this conversation, but that'll be further down in the bullet points I've written out. Sorry, hold on just a second. I just lighted a couple of candles for myself. So along with the guilt, there's a good chance you probably feel scared to heal. And a good kind of way of, like, it might sound a little bit silly, like, oh, scared to heal, like, firstly, it takes great courage to admit that you're scared of what healing, this whole venture of healing, because, like, simplistically, all right, fine, it might sound like, oh, a scaredy cat, but break it down. There is a lot to feel scared about, and it's legitimate. I mean, you're going to be in places where it's uncomfortable. You're going to be acknowledging things that you don't want to acknowledge. You're going to be discovering things that you had no idea were lurking in the background, like the boogeyman. And then you're going to realize that boogeyman is a manifestation of your own imagination, so you're scared to face yourself. And there you are, wanting to heal yourself or care for yourself. You're scared of what other people might think of you. You're scared of the abandonment. You're scared of no longer having this pain, because the pain is all you know. This pain is what you have connected to your sense of reality. So if you fix the pain, and this is your sense of reality, then your reality stops. It ceases to exist. So it's scary stuff. It's not something to be underestimated. Being scared to heal, big one. A more real world example you could easily compare it to, not that it does compare, but is there's a proper term for it, but I keep forgetting it. But you know, when you got people who have been incarcerated for a long time, they're used to being in prison, and they're being released into the big wide world, and they want to go back to prison because they know that's what they know. They're scared of the world, a trepidation or something like that, or hesitation. It doesn't feel right because it's a whole new world. Like, you have no idea what being healed looks like. So things you don't know are things you fear. But with a progression of time, you will look back at this aspect of being scared to heal, and you'll realize that it's a reflection of just how badly damaged you really are. It's and this is just one sort of facet of this whole self-care topic, where it goes back to like realizing that which, because that could be very ominous to realize. It's like, damn, man, I have been injured. I am hurt badly, severely, and that means there's a hell of a lot of work to do. That's what I'm saying. You've already sacrificed far too much. Okay, moving on. So I think I kind of mentioned that you expect others to care for you, thinking that other people will bring you the care. So you try to, your care, your self-care becomes a mechanism of trying to cope. So as long as you can kind of cope, you kind of equate this to like, fine, I'm doing all right, that's good enough. But this just shows how survivalistic you've had to become. And really, self-care isn't supposed to be survivalistic. It isn't really about coping with the struggle, with the pain. So in a kind of little bit of a way, before you can address the self-care aspect, you might want to start off with this coping side of things, the survivalistic mode. Like, if you survive, you can then thrive. So it might sound like I'm piling on additional work here. It's like, what do you mean, Billy? Before I could do any self-care, I've got to get out of this survivalistic coping mechanism. It's kind of like, yeah, but it's kind of like the warm-up. It's kind of like the pre-homework or whatever, or the pre-inner work. It's beneficial. So don't be so what's the point? I've got a mountain to climb. It's like, yeah, you do have a mountain to climb. You'll be grateful once you're at, once you've climbed it. So quit your linen and get on grilling. Or but I hope it makes sense. Like, yes, it is something that's going to require effort, and it's worth it. Don't obviously, you probably might not feel like you deserve it, but you will when you've taken those steps, and you'll thank yourself, and realize that there will be times when you'll be like, I just can't do it. But it'll be that self-esteem is now growing, hopefully, by this point. And it'll be like, I know you don't, like, you and I both, brother, we both don't, it is hard. We're going through the trenches here, we're going through the mud, but like in a split mind kind of way, like your self-esteem and your ego will be silenced. And instead you'll find your friendship instead of with your ego, which you'll hopefully be realizing hasn't been your friend. Your real friend is your self-esteem. And so you'll make an alliance with your self-esteem. So you're not alone in this. You and your self-esteem are in it together, and will help share the burden. Will give you the motivation. So it's not really, don't think I'm giving you the motivation. I'm just trying to bring a better awareness that you already have the tools. You need to stop siding with stop listening to what your ego is saying to you, and instead listen to that quiet voice that is your self-esteem, who loves you, who wishes you well, and wants to see good things for you. So that's the relationship you should be working on. If with honesty, you've been neglecting your self-esteem, and your self-esteem hasn't been there to help you. So this is where we're trying to form that connection, that relation, and together you have a much better chance of once you get that momentum, then once that ball is starting to roll, it'll be a lot harder for it to stop. You'll get propulsion and be able to skyrocket going forwards. Your ego cannot do this for you. Your ego is taking you off into la is the magician, and you'll realize is what has been smoking mirrors and playing games with you. So at some point we'll have a conversation about the ego death, but that's really a separate topic, I think. Okay, so we'll move on to another point. I know I've got quite a few points, and I want to open up for the panel if give people an opportunity to jump on. So if there's something in particular you want to discuss, and maybe have a notepad and you want to write it down quickly in case you might forget it, please do so. We'll be here for a fair while. I see Tim is here. Good to see you, Tim. Raw's here. Good to see you, Raw. And I hope the audio and all that is still okay and not roboting or something. Okay, so in contrast with hard effort and pain, because it's like, it's like, Billy, I'm already in a world of pain, and you're telling me I have to go through more pain. It's like, yeah, but this is a different kind of pain, and it's like, oh no, you mean this is the brutal pain, the pain of truth? It's like, yeah, in some ways it's going to hurt even more, but it's like that, like a wound. Like, we can't be putting plasters on it. Enough of these bandage. Like, we're gonna have to go in with the surgery and get cut deep or whatever to get to the problem. But you'll feel a heck of a lot better once it's done. And besides, by now I thought you're used to pain. I thought you take some perverse pleasure out of it. So it's easier, in contrast, to therefore be depressed. And you'll see how being depressed is serving into this function of a coping mechanism. It's not just like, oh, I'm depressed. Yeah. Who's misery guts over there? No, it's actually part of this survival. I don't know how to look after myself because I don't know how to do the self-care. So the only way I know how to cope now is by being depressed. It's preservation. And that can lead off into this learned helplessness attitude of, well, I can't. I haven't got the ability to. Healing is beyond me. Thou shalt not heal. Get that out of your head. If that's what you're thinking, then that's something you're trying to convince yourself. You're lying to yourself again, like lying, and you're trying to tell yourself that this is the reason why I can't. There are messages, multiple messages, in all these little phrases that are coming up, and it's being able to decipher what's really at foot here. So if you feel like you're depressed, if you said it to other people, I feel depressed, begin to unpack it. What do I mean by that? Like, I'm saying, like, I'm shutting down into a state of self-preservation because I don't know how to manage. I'm finding it hard to cope. Now we got a better understanding of what this depression really is. What function does it serve? You're not depressed for no reason. You might think, you might lie to yourself and say, oh, I'm just, I don't know, there's something wrong with me. That's not really a good enough answer. That's trying to fob me off with like you're investigating, you're getting close to finding out the reason, and that scares me because I don't want to know. I'm hoping that I can get away with just saying I'm depressed, and then everyone else will come to my rescue and aid, which is what I was hoping from the very beginning, that other people will look after me because I don't know how to look after myself, or I don't want to have to look after myself, or whatever it is, you know. Now, here's one. If you were to have an excuse, maybe you could use it as a little bit of excuse, because you might notice I'm kind of putting the ownership heavily on the person, on you, you know, like you got to, it's you we're talking about here. It's your life, you know. Who else am I going to be talking about? But if you wanted an excuse, here's one you can project outwards. You could blame cognitive dissonance. I mean, it still comes back to you, but cognitive dissonance plus stress, it will cause stress, will interrupt whatever self-care you're trying to achieve, and it will cause you to get ill. Now, in the realm of narcissistic conversations, the cognitive dissonance, holding two opposing ideas simultaneously, it tears your sense of self, your self-esteem apart. You can't. So it opens up a wound of, well, you guessed it, pain, because you don't know, you can't trust what's going on around you. You can't trust your environment, and ultimately you can't trust yourself because you've got this confliction going on. Therefore, you can't make any proper sound judgments or decisions. You see things with a distortion. You start having that black and white thinking, and in both black or white, both are false because they're being distorted and the not taken into full consideration. So cognitive dissonance and things like stress, ultimately, if not kept in check or corrected or treated or whatever, if it's just left to run rampant, will fracture you and fracture your sense of reality. So you can see how this is very detrimental, because how are you meant to navigate through life if what you're seeing, your senses, are all out of whack? But going further with this narcissistic part, this is why, like, the narcissist is the first to have cognitive dissonance. You know, they're told they got the development of the inner critic, but at the same time they're being put on this pedestal of they are the greatest. So they've had this cognitive dissonance problem from the get-go, and look how well it's done for them. Hey, you know, they got their marbles in order. So we could take the narcissist as a caution of what we will become if we're not careful, like that kind of delusional aspect. Because if you've been torn in two, you're neither here nor there. You know, you're neither in fantasy or reality. Like you're where are, it's like it's some totally abstract. It's hard to even fathom where you are. It's like a multi-universe fantasy, if there is such a thing. But it can cause havoc to your, on a physical level, can cause havoc to your body, because if you can't trust, your body can't trust, it doesn't know what danger is anymore. And I suspect, for the goddamn record, I suspect that type 1 diabetes is a result, largely, not always, of cognitive dissonance. So in a type 1 body, the immune system attacks itself. And that's why I'm a diabetic type 1. My immune system has attacked my own tissue, that being the pancreas, and that's why I'm a diabetic. Now, later I found that people had this idea before in the past, and they brought up this example of World War. They said, well, if this is true, then why is it people during World War One, why didn't they become diabetic? And my answer to this is because they knew who their enemy was. Their enemy was out there, the Germans or whatever. But if your enemy is within your own head and your body is now doesn't know who to attack, then it's going to become, because of survival, it's going to become aggressive. And we can see how we've got an inner critic in a way. Our body is a reflection of that inner critic, that aggression, taking it out on itself and doesn't recognize. And to prove the point even further, I've heard like Angler. Sorry, I hope you don't mind me mentioning. I heard you talking about having this queasiness and vomiting. When I was with my ex, I would be vomiting, and my sugar levels were totally off the charts, and I would be winding up in hospital that bad, regular. When that relationship broke apart, I haven't been sick once. I haven't needed to go to hospital once. Is it a coincidence? Maybe, but I strongly believe that the cognitive dissonance, especially as a result of abuse and trauma and these emotional games that these harpies play, can do such a number on you that it causes you to vomit. That it's like your body is trying to eject the evil out of you. I don't know, maybe I'm getting a bit silly with the spirituality side of it or the analogy, but it's that sort of I'm pretty sure there is, from a medical point of view, like vomit, like ejection of whatever stomach contents is kind of like step number one. Like if there's something funky going on that has entered the body, most likely through your mouth and into your stomach, then your stomach is going to be like, we're going to get rid of that immediately. Okay, so we'll move on to the next point. I still got a few more. Sorry about it taking time to go through. And I appreciate everyone listening and following along, and I'm hoping it's helping. Now, sometimes we might be given bad advice, but in good faith. So I don't know, someone you try and open up to someone, and a friend says to you something like you sound very stressed. How about you go relax in nature? This can be bad advice. An extreme advice, and something that scares me, is when someone is suicidal, and in response to this suicidal person, they are told, you have so much to look forward, you have so much to live for. They mean it in good faith, but that is a very dangerous thing to say to someone who is suicidal. You have so much to live for, because you're not really thinking it from their point of view. Likely the person who has these thoughts is like, I've had enough of life. My life is pain and misery. I hate and here you are saying, I've got so much to look forward to. You mean I've got so much more misery to look for? I'm going to end it now. So be careful. If you hear someone saying that, I hope they mean it in good faith, but they're better off just keeping their mouth shut, in my opinion. But that's why the point I'm making here is that sometimes you get bad advice. It might be in good faith, hopefully it is, but you need to be able to screen it, is my point. And also, don't put yourself at the mercy of other people having to say things to you for you to then make things click and Like oh, I managed to turn my life around all because someone said the magic words. Like, well, that's pretty flimsy. You mean all it took was someone to say a few words and kumbaya, you're wonderful. I mean, maybe so. You know. Oh, I've got a point here that really should have went with the guilting part of it. So this one ties in with that guilt. So once you make a decision to care for yourself, not only do you feel guilty, but you might feel like a fraud. And that shouldn't be any surprise. So why do you feel like a fraud? What's the message? What is it? What's the communication going on here? It's saying that you feel like someone else. That's the whole point. You know, we're trying to stop. So if you feel like a fraud, in a way, this could be a good sign. It's like you're doing things that are not what you're used to, because what you've been doing so far has been self-harm, has been self-sabotaging, has been what is causing you to not have self-care, right? So if you're doing something that makes you feel like a fraud or an imposter or someone else, like the new you versus the old you, then this could be a good sign. It means you're doing, even if you're not sure what it is you're doing exactly, it means you might be doing like it could be worth worth exploring further and be like, so what is it I've changed? And then you could be like, I see where I made that course correction. It was obscured before, now it's bright as day. All I needed to do was to stop thinking of myself with vulgar language, or stop punching myself in the dick. And it's like, now I understand. Now I can pee straight. I don't know. I'm being a bit silly, but yeah, you get the idea. Right. Next point. Hard to say no to things that are not good for you. So because you've been conditioned by this point, most likely in your life, to treat yourself like crap and you don't deserve it, you've gotten so used to it, this is your normal, that it kind of ties in with the guilt, but you don't want to say no to it, because this is your stability, sadly. And also because to catch yourself in a moment, to have that critical awareness requires not just the honesty and these other aspects, but it requires you to stop and think. Now, if you're someone who's being consumed by your emotions, you don't really want to do any thinking. So you're not going to say no to something that is bad for you. You're not even going to recognize it as being the problem. You'll probably attribute your problems elsewhere. Like, let's say you're struggling to find a job. So instead of saying, hang on, the problem is that I haven't even bothered applying for a job. Maybe that's kind of like obvious, you need to apply. But instead of saying that, you go, no one's hiring, or no one's going to employ me. So you're blaming someone else. And if someone was to say to you, have you even applied? You can see like the hamster wheel is, no offense to hamster, the hamster wheel is, you caught them. It's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Well, no, I haven't applied. It's like, well, there you go. It's like, I didn't stop to think. Like, that's the problem. You're not stopping to think. You're so drowned by your emotions. Your emotions are pulling you along so much that you can't even think of your self-care, because you're too in the moment, survivalistic, impulsive. You can't think ahead far enough for you to have consideration. So we can see how some of these things are tying in together. But there's a message here as well, that this moment in this juncture in time, or whatever, is a good time to be thinking of like an alternative path to take. So instead of just like someone says to you, hey, I've got an idea that'll cheer you up. How about we get a tattoo on our foreheads, both of us, whatever. That would be a good time to sort of think and be like, maybe there's something better we can do, before I commit to making a mistake. And it could be something silly and lame. It doesn't really matter at this point. Like, you know, like as exciting as it might be, thank you for offering to get my head tattooed. But I'm going to make a cookie or something trivial, silly, lame, something boring. I'm going to do some coloring in. I'm going to join my kid with some coloring and like I'm going to get the crayons out. Just waste some time. That's still a good thing. It doesn't have to be something boomtastic or spectacular or something like that. It doesn't have to equate in the same kind of way. Like get through the next hour, day, week, whatever it takes. If it seems like something like piddly, then so be it. What is happening really is that you're lowering the height. Your emotions are heightened and elevated, and we're just trying to calm the storm. So it doesn't really matter what you're doing, as long as you're spending time in quieting down that emotion. And it's the after effect, which is what you're thinking, or in you're thinking about, the delayed gratification aspect of it. So it's like, I don't want the adrenaline rush of getting my forehead tattooed immediately, because I'm craving like a buzz. Instead, I'm just going to mellow out. I'm just going to stare at the wall for an hour and look to see if, I don't know, I'm going to count the leaves on a tree, or something like that. It's you're not being nuts or something like that. It's like doing like a breathing exercise. You are regulating yourself. You're taking responsibility as well. So even though it's something small, you can give yourself a pat on the back afterwards. Be like, yeah, I've just done a bit of maintenance. I've just done a bit of self-care there. I don't have to be doing anything in particular other than being present in mind and with myself, and holding my own hand through this this anxiety, and and looking at your emotions as phases. You're not always going to be angry. You're not always going to be sad. You're going to have ups and downs. So even if you feel eager to want to get some sort of adrenaline, if you just know, presence of mind, that look, if I can get through this feeling of wanting to have excitement or whatever will fade away. I just need to get to that point. Okay, so I've got a few of these points a little bit. I didn't really have the time to consolidate them. So going back to this, you want to actually, like currently the way things are, you intentionally want to sabotage and self-harm, because it lines up more with your inner landscape with your external one. It's a way of kind of rectifying this cognitive dissonance. So then you can say, yes, this is true. I am a piece of crap and I don't deserve, it's like, no, this is wrong. So you like beating yourself up and being disappointed with yourself. It's very easy. And as a result, the victim mindset is not far behind. So what the victim fails, message time, the victim fails to realize is that they are, with all these variables around them, they're pointing the finger, they're blaming this is wrong, I'm oppressed, people are stalking me and all this, victim paranoia. I mean, this is narcissism, by the way. The paranoia, like, I'm so important that I'm at the center of all of this, and that's the point I want to make. And that's why it's like, not because they're at the center, all this is going around them and they're blaming, when really they just need to look at who's the culprit in the middle of all of this. It's the It's the person who's now becoming victim mindseted. Mindseted, is that the right word? Yeah, I suppose so. So if you catch yourself beginning to sound a little bit like a victim, or even if you feel like you're a victim, then the message is stop doing that. I'm being a bit too simplistic. Is that it's coming as a result of you not taking ownership of your own responsibilities, things that you should be doing. And also the people that you're trying to blame, or the variables, that the factors that you're trying to pin your excuses onto, aren't the reason why you're actually the victim, if that makes sense. So your accusations actually gets whatever it is you're accusing off the hook. If you're going to be, let's say you're going to blame Billy upset me or whatever, you're going to blame me, for example. Well, I know that it's not really my fault. It's you're trying to pin the tail on the donkey kind of thing. Maybe it's some other things that you don't want to admit to, but whatever it is you're trying to project onto isn't really, I don't think, most likely not actually the culprit or offender. Because the victim, although they're trying to blame, they're trying to recruit the caretaking from that, whatever it is they're pointing at, most likely is what they're expecting will look after them. Like, if I can blame you, make you responsible for how I feel, and you accept it, now you're responsible for me. So hopefully I explained that well enough. We'll just keep up with the comments now. We're getting towards the end of my little list here, my long list. Okay. I shouldn't really highlight that one. That's not very appropriate. I'm trying to be serious here. Now, with a lack of confidence, you fear making mistakes instead of focusing on what can be the answer. So it's like catastrophizing. It's the learned helplessness. And so the message is that try not to focus so much, as tempting as it is, on the mistakes, because the focusing on the mistakes is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're more likely to make those mistakes because that's what you haven't been focusing on the solution. Instead, you've been focusing on making mistakes. The next part, this one will be a painful one, is you don't want to grieve. There will be an underpin grieving throughout a lot of this self-care. Grieving in many ways, like the loss of your innocence, the loss of being able to have other people look after you, the loss of a dream of bliss, of wonder, and as I was talking earlier about this sort of the new you versus the old you and how it might feel like a fraud. Well, you're going to have to grieve the old you away. They say, I'm sorry you went through all that pain. It's not completely for nothing, but rest in peace in a way, spiritually, mentally, and that part of you will actually, knowing that you can see them, you can see that part of you that was hurt so badly, that you acknowledge, is through that grieving will give validation as well. So if you're holding on to that pain, because you don't want to grieve, that's telling you that you fear that pain, which is what you're attributing as your identity, you fear that abandoning you, and now you'll be alone. And the new you, but alone. But this is a life cycle in a way. So you have to have that kind of that higher level appreciation of what's taking place. Is that for new things to be birthed, for new creations, for new possibilities to happen, things have to die. So for a new you to exist, you're going to have to let go and allow the old you, this pain, you're going to lay it to rest. Grieve, mourn, let go, accept, let go, move on. And that's the best. That would be the best for both aspects of yourself, the new you and the old you. Okay, moving on. Transactional love. Now because you're pretty likely sacrificing yourself all the time and you're a giver and all this, then your pain not only is your identity, but you probably attribute it as something you can actually own. This pain belongs to me and only me. No one knows my pain, that kind of thing. And it is special. It's a special pain. It loves me so much that it decides to hurt me, whatever. But so you don't want to. So for multiple reasons, you can see why this pain has so much meaning behind it. And as humans, we need meaning. Otherwise, you become nihilistic. So if you've got no meaning anywhere in life, but the only thing that the only thing that appears to give you meaning is this pain, even though you can't describe it very well, it's better, it's all you've got, then there's no way you're going to want to let go of it. You fear, not only do you fear losing this pain, your identity, but you fear not having this meaning. But you need to understand that this meaning that you're holding on to isn't, it means nothing. It's created from distortions and emotional turmoil. So it's not going to really have any significance to you if you look at it more broadly. Like, what's the point of carrying this pain? Oh, because it means something. What does it mean to you? Like, it means all the stuff that I don't really like. Like, so why you keep it? So then you kind of like, you're right. Why am I holding on to this pain? I'd rather have a better meaning. Yeah, find some other meaning. And in part, not only because you've been sacrificing, but with this ownership, you want to own the pain as the one thing that is yours. But there's something far better, and that is being able to have ownership of yourself. So you need to realize that because likely you're thinking like, but I'm not allowed to have ownership of myself. That's the error. It's like, who told you that? Oh, everywhere I look, like, I didn't think I got such a low self-esteem. I didn't think I'm allowed to have self-ownership. Like, well, give yourself permission. You deserve to be happy. Happy sense of self. You deserve to have a sense of self. You deserve to have a self. Okay, a little point about the kids, but I've already kind of mentioned it. So some people say, think about the kids, I want to change to be a better dad for my kid. Yeah, I mean, these can be good motivators, but they're not something that should really be leaned on as the reason for. Because you're already saying with a statement like that, like, I could counter that with, well, what's wrong with wanting to change for yourself? Never mind your kid, but for yourself. So you're putting yourself on the chopping block there immediately, because you're saying, I'm not changing for me, I'm doing it for my kids. So are your kids responsible for you to improve? Like, that's not very fair what you're doing there with the kids then. The kids aren't going to really save us. They're not supposed to, and the kids don't really have this power anyway, because since they were born, had anything changed? I mean, if the kids are supposed to have this ability to make the deep changes in you, then why does that not happen when they were born? So have you told the kid that, hey kid, I expect you to help inspire me to change? I mean, or is this like a little secret, like you don't even tell them that, they'll be none the wiser that they saved my soul? So just be careful with that idea, and don't feel guilty or like be like, nah, like F the kid, I'm gonna change because I need to change. And being a better parent for my kid is kind of like a bonus. It's the reciprocal, it's the residual benefit of it. So give yourself some credit here, Now, there's a lot of avoidance when it comes to this self-awareness. So that's something you need to factor in and be like, hang on, have I just told myself a lie because I don't know because I fear what the truth might be, even though I don't know what it is. And so you need to factor that in to outsmart yourself. One example would be like, oh yeah, like yesterday I sat down and done some self-reflection. It's like, really? Were you really self-reflecting, or were you attending to the mistreatment, the self-harm that you've become an expert at? Because with all this time going by, you've become very skilled at being able to lie to yourself and have this victim mentality and all the rest of it, and things like that. So is this self-reflection really self-reflection, or is it a pretense, as if like, oh, but I am trying, really, governor, I swear? It's like, yeah, it sounds like you're doubling down is the message I'm hearing. Doubling down, pretending that, oh, it's not me, I'm just woe is me, I try so hard and I just clumsy and I just can't get it. It's like, no, go back and do some proper self-reflection. Because if it was true, you wouldn't really, if you really were self-reflecting, you wouldn't be sounding like that, would you? You would, you'd be getting on with the gift that life has to offer you. You'd be like, not only like, have you paid enough, have you sacrificed enough, but you'd be like, yeah, my time is precious and I need to get on with it now. I've had enough of this, sort of, you'd be, well, some people might think you've been you're drinking moonshine or something, but someone who's enjoying life. And obviously, all of this is going to be hard. It's hard, but that's your stubbornness. That's you resisting and wanting to fight back and be like, F you, Billy, So push that pride and shame aside and give yourself a chance here. It takes 6 weeks to form a habit. So in 6 weeks' time, how about you make a commitment? You're not going to be convinced to begin with. You're going to think this is a whole baloney. And you're going to have all these other kind of like, I don't even know what I'm, just as long as you're not doing the same things that you were doing before, so you're going to feel a little bit like walking into the darkness, or into blindly walking or something like that. But give it some like 6 weeks and review, and you'll probably be pleasantly surprised. And another sort of couple of points here. So what you you'll come to realize that what you've been doing is that you've been bypassing your self-care by servicing your ego, or the needs of your ego. And that's why you realize that, hang on, if you just redirect that energy, you'll be doing a whole lot better. So it's not like you've got a deficit that, oh, I don't have it in me or something like that. No, you do have it in you. You've been giving it. You've been feeding the wrong wolf. You've been feeding the ego, when really then you need to be directing that towards your self-care, to your self-esteem, directed towards your self-esteem, and that will open the way for your self-care. And servicing the ego, I mean, what does that sound like? That sounds like narcissist. No one's better than the narcissist at servicing their ego. I'm not saying you're a narc. I'm just saying that when you look at your behaviors, you'll see the convenience, the temptation of what narcissism offers its victims, its hosts. Not to let the narcissist off the hook with their accountability, but you can see how, because they struggle, this is why it's a survival defense mechanism, because they struggle so hard, so much, they caved in to their ego to save them, and so now they are in servitude to their ego. So take that as the cautionary part of this. If you neglect your self-care too much and it goes to some sort of extreme, you're more or less making the same, you'll be falling for the same temptations that the narcissist took in the very beginning. You're survivalistic, you're blame shifting, you're in denial, you're magical thinking, you've got distorted perceptions, your senses are all out of kilter. Do you hear how narcissistic these symptomology is? And obviously, if you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, they're going to be amplifying these behaviors in you. So all the more reason that you take it seriously. So I hope you're not just going to basically nod and agree with everything. I'm kind of closing my thing here, and we'll open it up. So I hope it's helpful what I'm saying, and it assists you. In no way is it going to do the work for you. So you're going to have to really go over this with a fine comb or whatever. So there's, nodding and agreeing is one thing, but you need to be able to catch yourself in those moments, to put the brakes on and be like, whoa, I'm just I'm chasing my emotions here. I need to catch myself in them, because we can all say, oh yes, it all makes sense, Billy. Yeah, it all makes sense. I agree, or whatever. And then tomorrow, you're back to your old habits because you're asleep at the wheel. So it's like, wake up, take control of the wheel, and be attentive to it, because things can come out of left field suddenly, and if you're not ready to take command of the situation properly, then and what will happen if you get caught out and you're back into your old habits? Likely you'll probably kick yourself down and be like, God, I'm crap at this, why do I even bother? So that's like a double whammy of like, no, that's a second reminder. No, you need to not think like that. That's a trap. And that needs to be a reminder. Look, you got caught out. We need to slow down. We need to be a bit more paced about this. Recovery, healing, self-care, it's not going to happen overnight, obviously. Not even like 6 weeks. Is it really going to make wonders? 6 weeks, it's just basically, it's when a habit forms, a good habit in this case. So, it could take years, unfortunately, but every day will be worth it and will be a reward to you. So it's not like let's say you do a couple of years of self-care or whatever. It's not for my benefit. It's not like I'm going to take it and be like, oh, thank you very much for that. It's for your own self-gain. So you're not losing in any way. It's not like a 2 years of your life you're not going to get back. That's totally the opposite. It's 2 years of your life that you got back. What have you been doing all this time leading up to this point? That is the time you're not going to get back. So however long it takes for you to be disciplined enough to achieve to some degree some self-care. It doesn't have to be like, holier than thou, miraculous, there's nothing ever wrong, but to a level which is manageable and has made a difference in all this, however long it takes, is time well spent, is rewarding, and it's time you're getting back what's owed to you from you, because you owe it to yourself, because you are worth it and you deserve to be happy. A few other little quick tips. Creating structure, routine will help greatly, so day by day, make your plans, see them through, even if later you might not feel like doing them. And that's my notes. So thank you for bearing with me while I went through. Oh, hi Russ. Hi Russ. How you doing? Thank you for bearing with me. Now, hopefully I haven't sent you all to sleep. I'm going to drop a StreamYard link. Sorry it's taking so long. I'm not sure how much. Where am I going to drop this? Drop it like it's hot. There we are. And so if anyone has something they want to say, if it's a big thing, we might have to come back for like a part 2. I didn't realize I would jab. Well, I suppose it's a serious, people go, it's a serious topic. We have True Anchor.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here, sir. How have you been?
Not bad. Actually doing pretty good. I bought a bunch of gold and silver, and at a time when everyone else is losing money, I'm somehow making money. So, hey, everyone else is going through a hard time, but I actually feel pretty good.
Good. Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Yeah, I mean, at the start, I was saying like, I've been hitting a bit of a hiccup or whatever, but these are messages of what am I gonna bitch and moan about it? Well, yeah, I did, but I mean, so what are the options? Do I continue to bitch and moan, or do I actually do something about it? And hopefully, I'm doing something about it.
Yeah, I'm a whiny guy, and maybe that's just me internally trying to convince myself I need action. But there's some people that are just total losers. They just want to whine and not do anything.
Well, it might be a bit mean to say losers. I mean, there could be compounded issues why they're like that. But in terms of like, if you're not even gonna bother try, then what kind of hope have you got? We can't do anything. We can't work with someone who can't even try. Like, if you're gonna help, that they need to be able to help themselves first of all.
So, just tuned in. What all did I miss, Billy? What all's going on today?
Oh man, what is? I don't know. It's kind of like brain fog now. I'm not even sure what's going on. I just feel what's happening today, and it just feels very like frustrated or like tired or something like that. I'm not even too sure.
Sounds more physiological than psychological.
Well, there's that aspect to sort of factor in a little bit. I guess it's been a day of self harm, of saying to myself like, for F's sake, should have gone out to the shops, should have done this, should have done that, didn't really get the washing done, didn't get the bedroom tidied up, didn't really get the floor swept up. Dinner was abysmal. Did I even have lunch? No lunch. Dinner was not very good. You know, late to bed. See, it's easy to find excuses and to complain about it. So, what's more important, really, is be like, yeah, it's the realization. It's kind of like, well, that's life, isn't it? Life has its way of not really kicking you while you're down, but you know, it can snowball. And the thing is, if it's the if you're not careful, instead of focusing on what went well today, here could I be? That's why I put it. Just listing out a whole bunch of complaints. Like what went well today? If I want to count, like now I have to actually see. I have to put effort in here and be like, actually, what went well? Right. I dug out the laptop. I organized my desktop PC to make a file so I could transfer stuff from this computer onto a laptop, and hopefully maybe tomorrow I'll make the switch over. I prepared the stream tonight, and I'm thinking it's going pretty well. It's pretty helpful. So these are big, you know, it might only be 2 things compared to the 12 I've just listed off of complaints, but those 2 things matter more really than my moaning. But enough about me, you know. Like, what else has been happening? Like with you, like you've been getting the gold and the silver. Have you been stocking up? Have you been following the news, banking bailings and?
Yeah, I've been buying gold and silver for like 2 years. So what's going on now? I actually predicted it 2 years ago, and it amazes me. It took 2 years for this day to come true. Because when you talk about bank bail-ins, or not bail-ins, banks not being able to pay out to their depositors what they say is there, that is a very unique thing for the Western civilization. I don't think the U.S. had that issue since the 1930s. So like 90 years ago, and I was predicting what happened last week, 2 years ago. So that aside, I think it's going to get worse. I think there's a overall nefarious plan to centralize power, maybe collapse the fiat money system and make way for CBDC, which is going to have a social credit score. It's going to be very 1984-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have to wonder what it is. They're already doing it in China.
There's a gentleman in the chat called Bandit. I'll put one of his messages up. He's far more in the know than I am when it comes to sort of economical. Like Bandit, would you mind describing your sort of area of expertise, if I can put it like that? But the financial, the economic, and some of the sort of like political systems. So, but yeah, like what your predictions is something that I think everyone generally is in a similar kind of mindset. We're seeing the trends and making comparisons with like China, for example, like the social credit score you just mentioned. I mean, here in the UK, yeah, it's quickly going in that direction. But at the same time, across Europe, there is increase in civil unrest, protests, and people taking matters into their own hands. I'm not sure if you've got that happening over where you are.
Not yet. I mean, I got a 12 gauge, so if someone wants to try to burn my house down, it's not going to be a good day for them. So this stuff kind of self corrects. But I think in Europe, where y'all don't have a lot of firearms, and you're dependent upon a 15-minute phone call and cops showing up, I do see that turning nasty rather quickly. And a lot of people, they don't listen to the psychologists, but we human beings, as much as we try to tell people to get along and not be racist, there's something hardwired into people's brains to where they are tribal. So when you mix a bunch of cultures together, and times are good, everybody can get a job and get as many resources as they generally want. It may go well, may look good, but then when times start collapsing, I think you're going to see tribalism become very, very much apparent and very dangerous.
That part of you're talking about is more sort of what I'd be like, yeah, you're right. I mean, I see it more from the psychological mayhem that's going to unfold. I mean, crime is going to go up, desperation is going to go up, suicide is going to go up, delusional escapism, psychosis will go up. So, and it's going to be a pressure even on the most sane members of society that we have, because if you are someone who's sane, like technically sane, and everyone else around you is crazy, well, by definition, you're the crazy one. There's something wrong with you. Like, how is it you're sane and everyone else has gone crazy? There must be something wrong with you.
Well, from my perspective, it seems like the kind of the people that think for themselves, probably more than average IQ, they were simulating out like very bad things happening in 2023, and they were like all depressed, and like all the stupid people that believe the propaganda and think that they can change the world with a good attitude, they were like saying you all need to have happy thoughts. Well, now I feel like the stupid people, and maybe that's condescending of me to say that, but maybe my vocabulary is just not right, but it feels like the stupid people are starting to see how bad things are. It's not getting better. And I'm starting to notice those people are really getting depressed now. I remember when I first started talking to you, Billy, I was like, oh, this guy's great because there's going to be hard times that go on, and he's going to be a wealth of information to help people deal with it.
Well, maybe. The thing is, if I'm a bit sort of brutally honest, I have a tendency to be like, right, so you want to get better? Right, get ready to go through the darkness. Get ready for some pain, because, you want to search for some souls, then you're going to have to go deeper than the abyss. We're going to have to go to the mantle of the earth to get there, and you'll be lucky to survive if that. But just go for it, What have we got to lose at this point? So I have an excitement when it comes to like nihilism, for example. It's like, great, we get to be atomized, we get to destroy our ego and all sense of who we are, and hope there is some glimmer of a soul that remains, and that's the beautiful part of it. But obviously it's a lot of trauma we have to get through. So you could say I'm a bit of a meanie in a way. I kind of like traumatize people in order to mortify them and to let go of their ego. It's like, your ego ain't gonna protect you. You've been holding on to your ego as a safeguard to get you through all of this, and along I come and I go, that's just a sign of desperation. Basically, you're already on the edge of insanity. Well, I'm getting a little bit insensitive by saying that, but I do hope that there is a chance.
Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
But like you were saying with the we'll just talk about love and light and happy, la la la, and rainbows. It's like, nah, that ain't gonna do it.
Well, I mean, I think the rainbow stuff would have worked back in the early stages, like prevention. Like prevention can be very soft and gentle, but when you have a cancer that is possibly terminal, then you got to do the hard stuff like chemotherapy and surgery, and maybe that's just you're the hard solution, but you're the only solution for this stage of where things are with people.
Well, the only kind of help I could be really, with all the other guys here, there are people in different sectors and experiences and professions and things like that. They'll probably be more of benefit initially, at least, and keep you safe. My expertise, if you can call it that, is the more psychological. Like, how well is it going to sit in your mind going forwards? Now, I think maybe an overall in conjunction is probably the best bet. You try and factor all of this stuff in simultaneously to increase your chances, and it's a lot for the average person to take on board. So not to sound too blowing our own trumpets, but for people who converse in these areas, we're the only people who really seem to be preparing for what's to come in a more realistic sort of way. Whereas the general populace of society are trying to circumvent and beat around or trying to find an alternative way of surviving, like by blaming each other, oppressing and making declarations and changing these laws and systems and whatever else they're trying to come up with. Hey, Bandit's here. All right, give me 1 second.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I have to get my dog. 1 second.
Oh, sure.
So, Billy, I think what you said, there's a lot of truth in that. If you got to think about like how human beings evolved to use their intelligence, you have to think about a tribe going out and hunting. So most men, and I think women were just meant to be in a group, talk together, pick berries and make textiles and all that. But men were supposed to go out and do some really intelligent things about trying to hunt and optimize their resources. So the men that were in charge were the high end thinkers, and most men just took orders. So I think that's part of the reason there's so many stupid people that just think that they can be happy and everything's going to be hunky dory. I think that's just what they evolved to be. But I think the smarter people are more like the people that were the leaders of the tribe. So you're going to have like a demographic of maybe 10, 20% that are going to be highly intelligent, that can see where things are headed. And they know it's not good because they have people aren't listening to them. Like, stop doing bad things or you'll get bad results. What do you think about
that? There is like some biological stuff to support evolution, to support what you're saying. So I generally agree with it. Like, as much as everyone likes to think they're sigmas and alphas and omegas or whatever, top dog or whatever, like, come on, let's be realistic. Like, not everyone has leadership qualities, and there's nothing wrong necessarily with being the so-called follower or sheep. So we can't really criticize. Like, you've got the blue pill, red pill, and black pill, for example. We can't really fault the blue pill and look down at them as if they're inferior. If it works for them in some ways, you could say that they have a happier life, even though they might be a bit complicit and go along to get along, compared to, say, like a rebellious red pillar. Then if you had the luxury of choosing, which would you ignorance is bliss kind of thing, then maybe some of these, if you could get away with being a blue pill, there's a good chance that maybe you would. But it doesn't, because you know what you know, you find it harder to have ignorance is bliss. You can't fall for the magic trick and be entertained and think life is wonderful if you know how the magic trick has been performed.
Hey guys, I'm back. To add on this, people don't talk about the burden of leadership as well. Like, it's lonely at the top. You don't have the support system. Everybody's looking at you for answers. Everybody's looking for you to make decisions that, could be life threatening. That's a lot of ownership. And to be honest with you, not everybody's prepared or has the means to be prepared for a role like that. I would argue blue pill in society, it's a necessity, because if everybody was red pilled, nothing would get done, because you'd have everybody thinking that they're alpha and and everybody's got to follow them. And it's one of those too many cooks and not enough sous chefs, or too many chiefs and not enough Indians, if you know that reference. So you do need followers, okay? Not everybody, and it's not, and this whole alpha beta crap, it's it's really dumbing down your role in society. It's like saying, "Oh, men are just providers." It's literally bringing your net worth being if you're a leader or not. And to be honest with you, it's kind of it's very short-sighted because a good leader knows when to not be a leader. A good leader knows when to listen,
Exactly.
when to pull advice. Like you shouldn't be a leader in every single role you do because you're not an expert in everything. Like, like I deal with money, but guess what? When I do my investments, what do I do? Do I do it myself? No, I hire a financial advisor because they're more attuned to what the market's doing. Okay, could I do it myself? Probably, but if I hire somebody, I know there's guarantees, and that allows me to do other things.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not about being alpha all the time. People need to realize you cannot be alpha all the time because you don't know everything. Like, if I'm building a house and I could do it, would it come out okay? Probably not. I hire somebody to do it that has more expertise. So I'm submitting to a builder. Anytime you pay for something, you're technically submitting to somebody else. If I get a haircut,
absolutely. Yeah.
Let's look at it this way. If I get a haircut, can I cut my hair myself? Yeah. Will it look anything good? No, but I'm submitting my body to somebody else to cut my hair. I'm paying for a service. That's submitting. So this whole alpha beta crap, and Wrangler, I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying in general, this whole alpha beta crap.
I get it.
So it's so juvenile the way you're looking at the world.
Yeah.
It's either the haves or have-nots. It's the lead. I mean, it's literally you're basically polarizing people into two camps. When, to be honest with you, life's more nuanced. You're not always going to be an alpha, and you're not always going to be a beta. But the same person's going to be alpha and beta depending on the situation.
And there's a bit of humility.
Yes.
And
I have been trolled really bad. I'm now named Minnow Wrangler.
You could correct that if you want. You know, I thought you.
I don't care.
But
I don't care.
You want me to change that for you? I think I could change it for you.
My whole thing is
don't worry about it. No.
But my whole point is it's not about people need to stop worrying about titles and what people care about who you are. I'm beyond sick of people telling other people who they are based on some arbitrary thing. It's just another level of control. This whole alpha beta bullshit needs to stop. It needs to be based off results and outcomes and experience. Like if I can go and look and read a psych book, but you know what? I can defer my opinions to Billy because Billy has the experience. If Billy says this person's a narcissist, I'm not going to be like, no, Billy, I'm going to do my research and find out they're a narcissist. I'm going to trust his viewpoint because he's got the freaking experience. So technically, I'm submitting to Billy's verdict. So in that situation, I am being a beta. But does that mean I'm still taking a leadership role in my life? Yes, but I'm submitting to someone else's viewpoint. Like, that's what I'm talking about. This whole alpha beta crap needs to stop.
Yeah, and that is a sign of leadership in its own sort of sense as well. Well, you already made the point, like the acknowledgement of delegating tasks or responsibilities to the most appropriate or fitted person to do it.
Well, everybody has their own a certain Christ, I'm trying not to take up too much time here, but anybody has their own certain form of leadership. Okay, Bandit can lead in this way. BTG can lead in this way. Maybe I'm able to lead in this way.
Yeah.
Or who gives a fuck, and we just help each other out.
Yes, that's the thing. And to be honest with you, if everybody's pulling their own weight, you technically don't need a leader. A leader, the point of a leader is either there's two roles of a leader. It's either to put blame on someone, not yourself, because honestly, that's what humans do. If they don't know what to do in a situation, they divert to someone that takes control. And then if they screw up, they put all the blame on that person, justly or unjustly. I mean, that
people for sure. Yeah.
Or the thing is, do you really want the strongest person to just take power because they can outpower somebody? That's pointless too, because you don't get. That's how you get warlords. That's why, and that doesn't solve anything. Sometimes it's better for the. I hate to say it though, but it's the truth. Sometimes the weaker approach is the better approach. You can't just show strength every single time.
Absolutely. That's a very solid point.
You gotta show deference. You gotta know when. You gotta know, like, when to have the soft hand and when to have the hard hand. Do you know what I mean?
Like Optimus Prime there. He was told you have to be strong enough to be gentle.
Yep.
Exactly. And I would
strong enough to be gentle and put the other people under your. This is going to sound really bad, but put them under your foot, and when they need to be used.
No, you can't look at it as being used. Any leader, anybody that has any bit of leadership qualities or understanding is the people that you lead is an example of who you are. You're basically, your will is their outcome. Okay, so in a sense, if you're a shitty ruler and you rule by fear, your subjects are going to look at you in difference, and then it's not going to be true love. It's going to be fear, and then everybody's going to realize that you're just in there because you have power.
Okay.
If you're building people up and making them better examples of you and better examples of themselves, that is 100% the best, proudest thing you could possibly be as a leader, is showing you're actually building people up to be the best versions of themselves. That's the net goal of a leader. It's not about the net results. It's about the net results of the person that you're leading. If they end up making better decisions every day, they end up, being the person that they want to be, being 110% of what they were yesterday, then you did everything you're supposed to do. Now, if the people are going to be making mistakes sometimes, hell yes. No one's perfect. Is a leader perfect? Hell no. But the thing is, if you're making more good decisions than bad decisions every single day, life's going to reward you.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
And there's also what you described before is this bravado of wanting to assert through their ego, like, I am the alpha, I am so independent, and
I don't want.
They are unaware that is a huge vulnerability, because they're creating such a big chasm between the leadership position that they want to occupy and
they make them stupid.
Well, the thing is,
no connection.
What they do is they don't allow. If you follow what Billy's saying, they do not allow for growth. What you are today is what you are tomorrow and 50 years from now, because you're not going to take any new information. And because if I'm a alpha kind of guy and I just lead by sheer will of personality, sheer will of strength, I'm not going to listen to another person's point of view or another way of looking at a situation, because that threatens my ability to lead.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie? Have you seen the movie Lord of the Flies?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus!
They got the seashell. They pass around, like, he who has the shell can speak. Well, in a way, that's like taking.
There's an actual very terrifying scene in that movie when Piggy got hit with the rock.
Oh, spoilers! Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, the aggressive kid. At some point, he wants to take that seashell because he wants the power.
Yeah, but what did the aggressive kid do? Because he didn't listen to reason and logic. Now, people always miss this part of the story, and this is the most important thing. They didn't kill the piglets. They killed the mom, because the aggressive person didn't take reason and logic, and they just did it by will of personality.
Are you talking about the kid that got stabbed with the sticks?
No, I'm talking about the guy that killed the mother pig and not the piglets, and then there was no more pigs on the island, because instead of taking logic and reason, they just did what they want out of sheer personality, sheer will. This is what happens when you let alphas lead, because what happens is anybody that threatens their viewpoint, they have to either put them down or do the opposite just to stay quote unquote alpha. You can't take any, you can't submit to someone else's viewpoints because quote unquote, then you're not alpha. See where this circle logic gets you?
Yes.
This is why I hate the moniker of alpha and beta, because anybody that doesn't have all the information technically is a beta in that situation, because they have to defer to someone that has more experience. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong to asking for help or asking for someone that has more experience on dealing with a situation that you've never dealt with. Like asking for help, I hate to say it, most men need to take this viewpoint. When someone asks us for help, they're not weak. Okay,
I'm gonna say it's kind of like an ironic statement. It's like he who's able to ask for help, the so-called beta, is at that moment is actually showing signs of being an alpha in a way.
Yes,
showing a huge amount of courage, and can be inspiring and taking people in places that the so-called alpha isn't willing to go. And that is to be vulnerable, willing to be vulnerable, willing to be exposed.
Yep.
This is why
I had to take a phone call for a few, and I'm sorry that I missed, I think, a good portion of this live stream. And Billy, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I mean, you got to do what
but all this goes back to to ego and self-esteem.
Well, self-esteem. See, the thing is, self-esteem is, I like to call. Self-esteem is one of those things. You need self-esteem to survive as a person. However, if it's not met with any bit of temperance, meaning if you have no limits on your self-esteem, your ego takes over. A lot of bad shit has happened when people's egos gotten away. Okay, it's a balancing act. You need to have enough confidence that you're not going to be walked on, but not too much confidence to not ask for help when you need it, or for your ego to get in the way. No one likes the person that brags about their accomplishments in front of all the time.
Right.
It's one of those, your actions speak louder than words. No one cares. I hate the person that always says, I'm a leader. Well, no, you're not. If you have to say I'm a leader, then you're not a leader. You have to show that you're a leader. You have to show commitment. Yeah. Everything that matters in the world that we live in, you have to, you can't just tell somebody, I'm honorable. You show you're honorable. You show you have confidence. You show you have commitment. You show you that you have love. You show any of the tenets that are virtuous.
Mm-hmm.
And ironically are manipulative, both have to be shown by actions. And it's a good thing. People need to look at it as this is a good thing. Your intent of what you show to the world it's a good thing that we have to see this, because then that's the only way we can grow as a person. If I can go up to Billy and say, I'm hot shit, and Billy, as much as you're great at talking about psychology, you know what? I have one more year experience. I don't, but I'm just as an example. I have more experience than you, and your viewpoints don't matter because I'm hot shit. Is anybody going to take me serious? Hell no. But if I go to Billy and say, look, where are you coming from this? Can you explain to me why this person is the way they are? And Billy goes, okay,
exactly.
I'm going to explain it to you. And then I go, okay, I have a different viewpoint on this. Maybe you can help me see what I'm not seeing. Okay. Now that coming up to Billy, that seems like a weak thing to say, but in order for me to learn, I have to be submissive to somebody else. This is why I hate the whole submissive alpha bullshit, because anytime you ask for advice, you're technically being submissive because you're submitting to someone else's viewpoints and their experience.
It's just become, I don't know what, feminized. I mean,
no, don't use. It's not feminized. It's bastardization. Because feminized means that girls are.
That's a better word.
Bastardization is basically you taking something that's virtuous and flipping it on its head. You're taking something good and turning it into a negative. That's like saying like a guy that's overweight has a dad bod. Okay, you're turning a negative into a positive. It's the same concept. Instead of calling someone a feminist, you should say, if someone's saying, "Oh, you're being feminine," sometimes you should be saying, that's like a juvenile way of looking at things. We're adults here. An adult way of looking at it, be like, why are you having these viewpoints? Are you trying to learn? Are you trying to understand another person's viewpoints? Are you trying to put themselves in your shoes? Are you trying to understand your opposition to make better arguments? There's a lot of things like, there's a lot of things that you need to.
No. I'm understanding you perfectly, bro.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to understand with this whole, binary. I cannot stand binary bullshit. We are not heads or tails. You're not either alpha. Everything is nuanced. Yeah. This is like treating everybody like freaking kids. You have to put people in camps, and either you're alpha, you're positive or negative. You're boy, you're girl. You're alpha, you're negative. You're submissive. Like some things, you are a boy or a girl. I understand that, but what I'm getting at is not everything is bilateral. You know what I mean? Like, not everything is a coin toss where you're either yes or no. You're Republican or Democrat. I mean, everything has been so brought down to its basically core that there is no nuance. And the problem with nuance is you get the zero tolerance bullshit. And that's what basically we're dealing with. You're either my camp or you're.
Sorry to cut you off.
It's like it's either you're in Bandit's camp or Bullet's camp, or I'm sorry, Billy's camp. Okay, so if you're in Billy's camp, you can't get Bandit's evil. If you're in Bandit's camp, Billy's evil.
So
a lot of bad shit has happened when people bring things down to the point when everything's not nuanced. We need to make things more complicated.
That's what
one of the things. Sorry, Angela. Let me just throw this in here. So woven in with
your channel,
woven into this part of the conversation is this need for the control, and for people to get this control, they reduce things in a simplistic manner. That makes it. Now they can get their hands on it. So the more things are complicated, you can see how it's harder for them to manipulate their control over it. So
I agree. And
the way I see it is they reduce it down to a place where it's almost nonchalant. But then and like just how you described it, when they put their hands on it, then they complicate it.
No, it's never complicated. The reason why people decomplicate things is to create a binary. It's have and have nots. It's the rich, it's the poor. The thing is, it's to put people in camps. That's the whole reason why everything becomes bilateral. Okay, you put people in camps, then I can section out that whole group of people because I'm in the in group and then you're in the out group.
Yeah.
So see how I'm getting everything is bilateral. There's two camps. Okay. It's the with us or the against us. It's the good, it's the evil. It's the pro, it's the con. It's the rich, poor, Democrat, Republican, pro-America, anti-America. See what I'm talking about? Everything is bilateral.
Politics. Yeah.
Well,
even higher. It fundamentally it gets reduced down to me versus you, and I matter, you don't.
Fundamentally. Thank you.
And to be honest with you, these arguments are making people like we're treating grown adults like freaking 4-year-olds. You teach 4-year-olds, you touch this.
That's exactly what it looks like. Yeah.
And the problem
is exactly what it looks like.
The problem is there's no adults left because anybody that has a positive way of looking at things and make change, they isolate those people and kick them out. So you're only dealing with narcissistic people that take power anyways. Like, to be honest with you, what would be both you, Angler and Billy, and I'm sorry for talking so much, but
you're good.
If you want to make a ideal leader, what would be your top, just for each of you, just give me your top 3 traits of a good leader.
My top 3 traits?
Yep.
Empathy, compassion, and sympathy.
Okay. Billy?
Empathy, compassion. Humility.
Mm-hmm.
Vulnerableness. And I'm not too sure what a third one would be.
Mine would be stoicism, intelligence, and empathy.
My goodness, we just came up with the perfect leader.
Yeah, but my point is none of those traits are in any kind of leadership role in government or even.
Oh no, you got psychosis,
Well, that's what I'm
sociopathy.
saying. It's because no one wants to go through the meat grinder of politics. Any
Well, you
decent
kinda
person
see-
goes, "Am
you
I going to
kinda
put my
see it.
family through all this bullshit?" No. So now you
You-
have only people left are narcissists.
Well, yeah, like you said, bastardized earlier. So you do kind of see what the adjectives that we brought up, but you see a bastardized version of it.
What do you guys think about the possibility of Elon Musk?
As what? Because the most he can be is either a senator or a congressman, because he's not a Native American. He's not a native born to America. He's South African, so he can never be president.
Barack Obama pulled it off.
I understand that, but his case would be a lot hard. Elon Musk cannot be president. It's impossible.
Yeah, because he would try to upset everything. Just
No, he can't. He physically
Trump did.
can't. He physically cannot be president. Like by law, he physically cannot be president because he's not a
Okay.
native born. He's not a native born American.
Well,
Now,
even if
highest
he
he
gets
can be
in there
is-
somewhere, But
The highest he can go is a governor. If
maybe
he
he
wanted to
doesn't-
be, that's the
doesn't
closest thing he can be. He could be like governor of Texas if he wanted to be.
yeah, he probably doesn't even want involved with it.
No,
You
person
know,
with that, the only person that wants that kind of role is a narcissist,
yeah,
and
he's
I
not
don't
that
see-
guy.
he's narcissistic in another way. He's got too many businesses to run to actually take on politics. To him, politics would be a step down of what he's trying to accomplish.
Okay, sure. Yeah. All right.
So, Billy, I know you wanted me to talk about the whole SVB thing. Is that what you wanted to talk about?
Well, the thing is, like, Truth Anchor had to depart moments ago, and no, he was. What was he talking? He talking about this sort of economic, and the financial aspects of what's going down. You know, like the crash of stock and hyperinflation. I suppose some of those tangents.
Yes. And you're going to have hyperinflation because the only way to bail out a bank is to pay it off. And anytime you do quantitative easing, especially in an already inflationary market, you're going to have massive inflation. And
I mean, maybe what I'll do, I'll give you and Iridium Kush a bit of a plug here for your financial stream. So if you're interested,
I might not be able to stick around for this.
If anyone's wanting to know more about this sort of financial connections and how it, connecting to societal impacts and things like that, maybe head over to like Iridium Kush's channel where he has his financial streams with our guest Bandit here, and
yeah, I mean, the sad thing is most of this crap, they're making things a lot worse. They're literally doing what you're not supposed to do finance wise. Like when there's a reason why we only have $250,000 worth of FDIC insurance, because if everything was guaranteed, the amount of risks, basically the banks know now that if you're medium to large size bank, the government's going to bail you out so you can take insane risks. It's the moral hazard that no one's talking about, because they're bailing out all these people. Now the banks know if I'm going to get bailed out, I'm just going to take insane risk with investments, and we're going to have a lot more bank closures.
So you're saying with this FDIC insurance, which is $250,000, you're telling me that if I have $10 million in the bank and it gets stolen, I only get $250,000 back?
Yeah. because the thing is, there's
Okay.
there's ways around it. There's a thing called CDARS, or certificates deposits on registry. It's a way to move your funds through multiple banks, so you get covered for $250,000 at this bank, at another bank, so it covers all that. So like, honestly, at this stage of the game, if you have $10 million at one bank, you're an idiot, because there's so many financial tools already established to use that insurance to protect yourself. So that's one. Two, there's a difference between, and this is the thing no one's talking about, there's a difference between an individual having a lot of money in a bank and a small business having money at the bank. Because if you're a small business, we'll just say 100 employees, you might have payroll of $2 million coming out of your bank account. So if you don't have that insured, no one's getting paid. Can you imagine this on steroids? I mean, 80% of working United States is 500 employees or less. Is 80% of the jobs in America right now. So if you don't protect those small businesses that have business accounts and they can't afford payroll, do you know what devastating it would be? Could you imagine you getting a pink slip saying, "Oh, your job's on furlough because we can't get insurance on"?
You're done.
You're done. Society-wise, you're done. Like this is economic collapse. So you have to bail out small businesses. So they should have a tiered system. Individual, 250,000, and I would say, without looking at the numbers too, I would say like $2 to $5 million for a small business should be
I think
FDIC
that's a very
insured.
good idea. A tiered system, yes, on how large your company is.
Well, just your payroll. You can't have people lose their jobs because, God forbid, their payroll and their payroll is $2 million every 2 weeks. Like, it doesn't make no one understands business. Like, that's just like, how can society run if you can't insure people's payroll? If you can't insure people's payroll, every single economic turn, you're gonna have you're gonna have so much risk going on. And the other thing no one talks about is no one's gonna invest in these banks, which means there's gonna be no investments being made to local businesses or mortgages. And guess what? It's going to be impossible for the average person to buy a house because no one's going to be doing mortgages because there's going to be no money in the bank to loan out for mortgages. Like,
right. And it would also be nice.
Everything is.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro. Go ahead.
It's a tiered system. You need depositors so they can rent. They can actually lend the money out to businesses and mortgages. If there's no money at the bank because there's nothing going to be insured, the whole banking system collapses. And you need banks. As much as everybody hates the banker, you need the banker.
I hate the fucking banks.
I know, but they're necessary evil. If you do not have bankers, society collapses. Could you imagine? Most businesses, there's a reason why they call it Black Friday, because it's the first day of the year that they're actually in the black, not in the red. So most businesses, they're in the black. I mean, they're in the red from January to mid-November, and then from November to December is when they're finally making profits.
All this money in this short amount of time.
And then you have other businesses like that are. Could you imagine if you're a seasonal company, like you're a skiing company, or you own a ski mountain, all right? Well, and you don't have the cash flows. That's the other thing no one talks about, the cash flow end. People do lines of credit because they don't have the cash flow right now, and they still have payroll to pay. Like, sometimes I'm waiting on a loan from somebody, or someone's bought this on credit. I'm waiting for them to get paid so I can pay my employees, so I have to take a line of credit out. Like, this happens all the freaking time. And if there's no money to lend out, that business goes under, and all those people got laid off. Now, if you do this locally, it destroys the local economy. But if you do this on a national level, you go into not in a recession, you go into a global depression. Because the United States fails, we take the whole planet with us. I mean, it's literally that bad.
Everything's done. If the U.S. falls, everything falls.
Oh, it's not just the U.S. If any country falls, because banking is so interlocked with other banks that if they took if say England failed, the snowball effect on that, the European Union would bail out England, and then we would have to bail out the European Union because they would have no cash, and then China will have to bail out the United States because we don't have any cash, and then if one person sneezes wrong, the whole world collapses. Do you know what I mean? Like everything is so interconnected that if one country fails, we all fail.
Has an overarch to all of what we're saying here.
I think everybody, all these fucking, okay, like we said, narcissists, sociopaths, all these politicians, they fucked everything up.
Well,
and
you're Bandit, you're religious, aren't you?
I'm sorry?
You're a religious type, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Would you agree that what we're seeing is this slippery slope of the 7 deadly sins taking over?
See, the thing is,
which one are you talking about?
Well, there's a lot of them. It could be sloth. It could be avarice. It could be greed. It could be a lot of them. The thing is,
I think it's greed.
All the deadly sins, greed is probably the worst because greed leads to all the other ones. Greed leads to envy. Envy leads to either lust or murder. Okay, so it's greed is basically the blackening of the heart. If you know what I'm talking about, greed and envy are probably the two catalysts that get you the rest of the deadly sins. Because if you envy somebody or you're greedy, and that line of decisions is going to eventually get you down a path that you can't go back. And the thing is with greed, if I know what you're greedy about, I can control you.
Yeah.
People don't talk about this. This is why greed and politics work so well together, because if I know what you're greedy about, what you envy or you're greedy about, I can control you. Okay? Because I can just either pull the heartstrings, or I can give you more of a taste, kind of like a drug addict, and then control you that way.
Sure.
So if you understand control in human nature, you have to understand greed and envy.
So maybe can we try and direct this back to the self-care aspect, because I think it's kind of linked as well. Where if you're not attending to your self-care, you become more susceptible to starting to adopt or take on traits of the 7 sins.
Yes. Well, self-care is also a slippery slope too, because if you put yourself everybody needs to have some level of self-care. We can all agree on that. But if you take it to its logical conclusion where you go too on board about it, it ends up being a circle back into the deadly sins. Because if you're too if you care about yourself too much, you're going to basically end up being greedy of what you have.
Yeah, you'll start lacking any empathy or care for anyone else.
Yes. So, like I said before, everything is nuanced. You need to be an angel and a saint. You need to be an angel and a demon at the same time. You need to be good and bad. You need to make good decisions. You
got to know that balance.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. And the thing is, it's like raising a kid. There's no life manual on what you should do in these situations. There's things that are legal. Basically, if you want to look at morality is there's what's legal is basically bare minimum of how someone should live their life. Okay,
Bandit, you've just justified or validated why it is that I take a bit of a perverse pleasure in trying to navigate people through their shadow into the pits of despair. It's like because you need it, because you can't have the light without the darkness. So instead of focusing on all this light all the time, come on, there is a darkness that needs to be acknowledged here.
Well, there is a lot of darkness that needs to be acknowledged. I agree.
I would argue you can't grow you cannot grow as a man without being in some kind of conflict or darkness, because remember, just like everybody always says, men's value becomes what they become of themselves. They're not just embraced with value. We have to earn our value. So the only way you can earn your value is you got to trip on landmines. Sometimes you need to take 20 steps back to take one step forward.
That's hard to hear, that in order for us to do that, we have to do it in darkness.
Well, it's true. Remember what was the first thing I said? Being a leader is being lonely. You have no friends when you're on the top because everybody's gunning for your job. So being a leader, you have to live in darkness because you can't trust anybody because everybody's going to be gunning for your job. Like, prime example, if I ran a business, okay, and I have 10 senior VPs that report to me, and there's 2 VPs that report to every senior VP.
Jesus Christ, that's a big company.
No, but I'm just using an example. Look how big this is growing, right? And then there's managers that report to the senior VPs, or there's VPs that report to the senior VPs, which reports to the board. Okay, so if I'm the president of the company, I know that I might have 1,000 people that rely. Every decision I make, I could cost 1,000 people their jobs, and if I make one side swipe. If I make one bad decision, I have all these
10
people.
Senior VPs, it's much more than 1,000 people. But anyway, I'm just being a smart ass.
I'm just trying to make round easy numbers.
All right.
I mean, you're probably dealing with a 10,000 to 100,000 employee company, but I'm just saying, just in general, like, you have all these people are gunning for your job if you make one mistake. So you can't ask for advice because then you show weakness. See what I'm talking about? Which makes you not a good leader. And that's why narcissists go to the top, because they know that they care about themselves more than anybody else. They make crappy leaders. This is why you always have narcissists 9 times out of 10 at the top, because anybody that is a good person, they don't want to manipulate people. They want to ask for help, and then those are the people that get knocked down. Basically, the way I look at business is, most people that are decent people, they get to the manager level, and that's about as far as they can go, because they don't have the cutthroatness to, throw people under the bus to get any higher than that.
Right.
So, and like I said, if you're going to be a leader, you're going to be alone. So you're going to have to live in that darkness. So as a man, you have to understand, you have to live in the darkness. The question becomes, how do you overcome it? Some people take it on themselves and then self-harm. Some people lash out and hurt others. Some people bottle it up and then take it out on their loved ones. Okay.
Is it overcoming or simply dealing?
Well, the thing is, everybody's not dealing with stress. People need to learn 2 aspects. Asking for help is not weakness. Okay. Step 1. Step 2. I would argue you can never be a leader. Everybody, depending on the situation, you always have to be a leader and a follower at the same time. A good leader knows when to submit to someone's opinion, because sometimes taking the L is definitely a win. So if I'm a VP of marketing, okay, and I have this budget, and if I do well in my next budget, in my next commercial, and I bring a certain revenue in, I get a bonus, okay? So I have this great idea, and then I pull it out to my employees, and employee A got, man, I didn't think about this. He gave me this great idea. Now, if I was a narcissistic person, I would say, no, we're doing my idea, and that might not work. But if I use someone else's idea and credit them, I still get my bonus. And by me taking the L, I gave the confidence to somebody else, and more good ideas will come because people are rewarded for their good decisions by giving me advice. Okay,
well, for one,
I was being submissive and asking for other people's advice, but I still made the ultimate decision. This is what I'm talking about, like stoicism. You need to know when to submit and when to be a leader.
So out of those 2 things, which one do you think is the best?
To be honest with you,
Yes.
it's not about, like I said, it's not about the dichotomy of being a leader and submissive. It's about the gray area. It's about being stoic, when to ask for advice and when not to ask for advice, when to have a strong hand and when to have a weak hand.
You're touching on I got a stream planned for I don't know when, but I've been working on like a subject of discernment. Well,
Yes.
I think I titled it as like breaking rules, because sometimes
Breaking rules. Okay.
Sometimes
I'm down.
I need for whatever, like someone who has good leadership or management prowess will know when they'll take an action which might be, to other people, might be questionable. Be like, how is it so and so is allowed to do it, but you won't let me do it? And it's like, well, that's because they're factoring other, there's different things they're factoring in to derive this decision. And sometimes it's not easy to spot. But it's a separate topic, because it's based in a conversation with like narcissism, because the narcissist will try and do this, where like the double standardness, where it's like it's okay for them to do it but not for other people. And if you start to behave in such a similar way, they'll accuse you of being a narcissist because now you're doing it. But there is a difference, and it's that discernment which will clarify. I'm trying to think of a good example that I can give you.
Okay. Here's a good example for you. I can nail it down to one question. When you're a leader, do you want to be feared or do you want to be loved? That answer right there should determine if you're a good leader or not. Do you want to be feared or do you want to be loved?
There it is, right there.
So if you want to be feared, you're gonna rule with an iron fist. No one's gonna give you advice. Everybody's gonna be stressed out to nth degree. You're gonna have people that are gonna try to sabotage you or not give you 100%. But if you're loved, sometimes you're gonna take the L and promote someone beneath you, because you know for a fact I can take the L, and their great advice is gonna build their self-confidence and then attacking a new role. Or they'll give me good ideas in the future. You're kind of banking on new ideas in the future because I'm showing that I'm rewarding good decisions by bringing them up to management. Remember, no one's static. A good leader will promote somebody to another management role or to another role if they're better suited for that role. Sometimes it's good to watch the other thing about being a leader is you got to watch your basically your eggs hatch. You got to look
it's better to do what's right. So maybe you might not be feared or loved, but
because I know what you're getting at, Billy, but so many bad things have been justified with doing what is right.
True.
That it's hard for me to say that, because what's right to me and what's right to Billy and what's right to Angler are three completely different things.
Yeah.
You need to have and that's what I'm saying. I'm results driven. Okay. Because it's the only way to judge someone's character is results driven. So if you're promoting somebody and you're mentoring somebody and they're growing as an individual, at some point you're going to have to cut the strings and they're going to have to grow on their own. They're going to have to make mistakes. They'll come back to you if they need to and ask for help. But your net result is them becoming the leader that you are. And maybe the best result I would say is they surmount you. They become a better leader than you. So you gave them the skills to open them up to be better than you. That's the best accomplishment.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a way, that's a little bit like how teaching in schools should be, really. You know, the students are supposed to outperform the teacher.
Correct.
As they grow. But this is something we're not really seeing anymore.
But that's what I'm saying. When you say some good decision, I mean, I know what you're getting at, Billy, but it's so many bad things have been justified in the past on bad decisions.
I think the better example would with child rearing, you might have two kids
Mm-hmm.
One is a lot more sensitive than the other. They both did something wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but the one who is more sensitive, you tell them off softly because, yeah. But the other one is a bit more resilient, so you can be a bit more stern with them.
But that's being stoic. That's
Well,
what I
yeah,
mean by being stoic.
but
You use
someone outside might be like, why is it you're telling them off in disproportionate ways? You know, you're not being very fair with telling either child off. And it's like, well, because I'm factoring in that there's more than just telling them off. That
would they know nothing about what's going on?
yes, and all you need to tell that person is, I'm handling my shit. Butt out of your shit because I'm handling it as an adult. Because my sons are different. They're two different people. Like, so if son A was like, pig-headed and just, basically does what he wants to do, and the other one listens to me but maybe made a bad decision, I'd handle that situation completely different. If the pig-headed one, I'm gonna have to drill it into his head that what he did was bad, and I'm gonna take it away from him. The one that understands he made a mistake, he's still going to get punishment, but the way I give out the punishments differently, because he's going to understand I made a mistake and I won't repeat it. The other one's going to make the mistake again. So I have to be harsher on the guy that's pig-headed.
Yeah. And just as a little spoiler for that topic, when it does come up, like this discernment of rule breaking, will be that the narcissist can't make this judgment very well. So they'll just basically abuse both kids to the nth degree without factoring in these other variables. And that's why narcissists are terrible parents as well, because they can't accommodate different other people's needs and tailor a particular kind of, like, because discipline doesn't necessarily mean punishment, is in, like, it's to teach, trying to, like, educate and things like that. But the narcissist isn't doing this. They're just controlling and trying to condition and fundamentally they're trying to destroy their own children.
Well, the narcissist.
Have you guys seen the story about the that guy, the bread company, where he paid every one of his employees $70,000 per year, and that's the salary that he took as well? I mean, whether or not that's true, I don't know. But have you guys seen that story? And I think that
and the business failed. It did well for a little bit. Yeah, and the reason being is people are people, A-type personality people, like salespeople. The only way they understand or they're going to be good employees is they need to be compensated. They need commission based. So the better they do and the harder they work, the more they're compensated. If I'm a CEO and or say my job is an engineer. If I'm an engineer and the person that's making the product is making the same as me, why would I be part of that kind of business? Because the value I'm adding and the value in a normal employee is adding is completely different based off skill level, experience. So you're telling me if I was in a business for 40 years, I'm getting the same paid as an entry level? How does that not create animosity? Like, that doesn't make a bit of sense. You're not You're not paying people the skill level that they are. Like, are you telling me that someone in HR is making as much as a VP? That makes absolutely no sense. You're telling me the janitor of the place is now, everybody has their role. I'm not discounting roles here, but you're telling me the value added to a business for a janitor and a value added for a clerk is the same as a value added as a board member? And the problem is, if the business ever went to a downturn, guess who's getting laid off the first? The janitor, the clerk, because they're making the same amount of money as the other people, and they don't add as much value back. I mean, I hate this. I hate to bring people based off their value, but that's really what it comes down to. You can't compensate people the same amount. That's that's basically socialism, because it cuts your individuality away.
Son of a bitch. I never thought about it like that, but yeah,
You're literally cutting your
that's total
individuality away.
socialism.
You're all the same.
Yep.
No one's important because we're all the same. None of us are good. None of us are bad. We're just average.
And that's kind of like echoing that sentiment of what you're saying with this sort of black and white and treating everyone like children, and the simplicity is with all of that as well. You could throw in this laziness approach to having to deal with problems or structures or businesses. There's no, not just lazy, but the lack of wanting to put any effort into like proper planning and thinking things through and taking into consideration and really trying to nurture and grow.
Mm-hmm. Really makes me think about. It makes me think about my grandfather, my father, and then myself, and where the respect was. Who you didn't fuck with simply because they were who they were. And I don't know.
Are you making a connection with family structure and how that kind of plays out into wider society?
Yeah.
Well, Angle, you bring up a good point. To me, I'm not a big believer of respect is just given. Respect is earned. Okay, and it's earned through a couple of different ways. It's earned through knowledge, experience, and authority. Okay, so if I'm in the military and I'm a private, and Angler is a captain, and Billy is a general, okay?
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I know. I'm just saying. In this example, if I'm thinking I'm hot shit and I know more than Billy the General, when Billy the General's 30 to 40 years older than me, has went to military academy, has the respect and loyalty of his troops, and I feel like I can do his job. What happens to me if I go and I don't salute you?
Yeah,
my ass is going to be doing about 1 billion push-ups. I'm going to be doing a lot of extra duty, and all this other shit's going to happen to me because I'm not respecting the person that has authority over me. Now, family level, if you don't respect your elders with the more experience, because they understand what's going on, they live through it. They're not going to. If anybody that is there to, and I'm talking a healthy family, not if most families are in this scenario. I'm trying to say a healthy family, not a dysfunctional family, but in a healthy family structure. Your parents and your grandparents are looking for the best interest of you. They're trying to protect you from yourself. That's why in the Bible and most religious books and most leadership books, they tell you to listen to your parents, because in a healthy society, in a healthy family, their whole job is to protect you from yourself, and you have to submit to them because they're looking out for you. Now, if you're not living in that environment, I understand that. Okay. And yes, that's a tough pill to swallow.
I'm gonna nab what you just said there. I want to throw that in with the self-care. So when you want to self-care, you want to protect yourself from your self-harm.
And the only way you can be self-harm is you need to have somebody other than yourself to tell you that you're hurting yourself. Like, you don't tell a druggie is going to do drugs no matter what you tell him to do. It normally takes either a family member cutting off funds or you almost dying to kick like cocaine, okay? But you're never going to kick cocaine by yourself. If everybody around you said either was disappeared tomorrow and you had no repercussions for doing cocaine, you're going to do cocaine until you run out of money and you have to start stealing from somebody and get caught, or you kill yourself by doing too much cocaine. It's only when you submit to your parents or submit to a friend that's telling you, yo man, stop cut this shit out. You're done.
Well, both my
That's the
parents are
only-
dead.
But I'm just saying, like,
My grandfather's dead. I don't think
you still
that's necessarily how it goes. I think
Yeah,
it
but you-
can go that way. I think it can most absolutely. I mean, Jesus Christ, we see it go that way. But, I don't think that's the way it goes all the time. I think sometimes, guys come out here and ask for help.
But the
And
thing is, you need to
Yeah,
have somebody
that's
in
the-
your court. You need to have
Yeah.
someone other than yourself that's backing you up, that has your best interest at heart. It could be a friend, it could be a mentor, it could be a family member. You need to have somebody in your court that's saying that is not yourself, telling you, "Look, man, you need, this is
It
what
might
I like
even
to
be
call
an
it."
enemy.
Yeah, that you need an accountability buddy. You need someone to hold you freaking accountable for your actions.
I found
Most
that
people,
one of my best friends. His name is Cam. I'm not going to give his last name, but his dad called me up, and it's getting crazy out here where I'm finding support in all this. I mean, this guy's, he's an old man, and he and I, that's why I showed up so late to the stream, because I was having a phone call with him. I think he's in his 60s or 70s.
but he's your accountability buddy. He's the guy that's saying, look, Angler, I've been there. I've seen enough of my friends go through this shit. I know how to deal with it. Listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have somebody in your court, you will never grow.
Right.
It's damn near impossible to self-reflect if you feel like you did nothing wrong.
Yeah. This is
Okay.
one of the problems of the monk. Not to step on toes too much, but this.
Monk
go
as
back-
fuck.
Yeah, I know.
Billy.
But the idea of like I'm an island of one. I'm an impenetrable. I've got it. I'm super independent. It's like, yeah, but the thing is, you can't. You end up having a bit of a blind spot because you can't see yourself very easily. I'm not saying it's not impossible, but I mean,
But who are those people
you
normally?
got-
Those
sorry?
are the alphas. The monks are the
Yeah, yeah.
alphas.
you got no one to hold you accountable but yourself. If you're so on your own, now
I
then
don't
you
even know
question how
what to
well can you
call it.
hold yourself accountable.
Alphs, Sigmas, who gives a fuck?
But people
We're
need to
just,
also-
at the end of the day, we're simply men, and we need to be out there, lending a helping hand to each other.
Well, here's the allegory for you. Okay.
All right.
Okay. When you're in a friend group, you're two things at the same time. You're a leader and a follower. Okay. So, for example, okay, if Billy and Angler are my best friends, okay, and we go in and have a talk, I might be doing better financially than Billy and Angler. Okay, so I'm going to be the leader, and I'm going to give you guys financial advice. Angler might be better at picking up girls. I might be horrible at picking up girls. Okay, so I'm going to have to be the weak person in that group, and I'm going to be asking him to be my wingman. Okay, Angler might be better at the gym. Okay, and if I need help lifting weights, I'm going to talk to Angler. Okay, now we all are good at something and we're horrible at something. So you're both a leader and a follower in the same group circle, depending on what you need from each other to grow it and be a better person. So people need to understand, when you're looking at your friends, you need to bring them up, and they need to bring you, and they also need to bring you up. So if you're surrounded by yes men, aka Mr. Alpha over here, if you're surrounded by yes men, you can't grow because you're basically plateaued at what you are today because no one's forcing you to become a better person.
Well, at the same time, Mr. BTG and myself, Angler, we would need you at the same time. I mean, just because that happened, that doesn't mean we would want you to go away.
Yeah, it's like Power Rangers.
Yeah. Well, but there's another thing to bring about it too. And this is the argument no one really talks about, because but everybody goes through this through high school. Okay, your high school friends, they plateaued at, we'll call level 1. Okay, so they end up doing drugs a lot, or they didn't go to college, and you went to college, and all they're talking about is just doing girls and doing drugs all the time. Okay, then you go to college and realize, oh, there's more to life than just drugs and girls. Okay, I have a career now, so now I'm looking at a different group of friends they're mentoring me. So I have a choice to make. I can take this knowledge and go to my old friend group and then be the bridge between my old friend group and my new friend group to elevate them to be the better versions of themselves if they take it. Or I have to disassociate myself from my old group to be part of this new group that I want to be as a person so I can grow. So you need to understand that you need to be open to be a mentor to someone else, to be the bridge. And you also need to be the mentor to bring your friend group up. Now, if you want to do X and they want to do Y, and you are adamant that you got to do this to be a better person, or this is what you want to be, and they don't want to grow with you, you're going to have to let those people grow, because otherwise you're going to plateau and you're not going to be a better person. Yep. So you need to understand that you can't force these people to make the decisions. Everybody stop forcing people to make good decisions, but it doesn't mean that you need to be kept at a certain level. If they're plateaued at level A and I want to be level B, and this new group of people I feel like I can grow and they're showing me new ways of looking at life, and now these people have families and these people have careers and they're not stuck in high school bullshit, I might have to leave the group of friends. I might have to take a giant risk and leave those groups behind.
So what do I do? Just leave my best friend of over 30 years?
No. What I'm saying is, you need to show them that I'm very passionate about. I need to be better for myself, and this is how I'm doing it. And if they're not going to support you, they're not. The problem is, they're not supporting you. You're plateaued. You cannot grow because you're going to bring you down.
Sometimes it doesn't mean like you have to tell them to F off, but one of the ways of showing love is to let go. Be like, look, I might not ever see you again. My spirit is with you, kind of thing. I wish you all the best, but we're on different journeys. Still love you, but I have to let you go. I have to let you live your life just as much as you have to let me live my life.
And trust me, a good friend will not hold you back. A good friend wants to motivate, wants to stay with your journey. A user is someone that's going to suck the living life out of you and keep you at their level. And this is the test for your friend, Angler. If it's a true friend, they're gonna be like, okay, I see you. What can I do to make you the better version of yourself? Do you need me to? If you're looking for a better job, okay, maybe I'll help you interview skills. Maybe I'll help you. I'll help you do mock interviews.
A great example of this, another movie drop time is, have you seen Good Will Hunting?
100%.
Oh, dude, I love that fucking movie.
Right, Matt Damon's best friend. He kind of tells him to basically piss off. And he's like, "No, man, I'm going to stay here working with you." And he's like, "No, I'll be angry with you if you stay here with me."
And then he moves off.
Yeah.
And they get him a car, and they help him on his journey. So in a way, the spirit of his friendship kind of goes with him through his gift, through the car as a gift. But
But that's the whole thing. You cannot grow if someone's holding you back. You can be the bridge to bring people up, but they have to make that decision. You can give so many ways of improving, but if someone's holding you back from being the best version of yourself, They're not a good friend.
Well,
They're a user at that point.
From what I'm talking about here, this guy that I'm talking about, that I've been best friends with for over 30 years, he's not that guy that will hold you back.
Well, then you don't have to worry about this. Then that's the person that's going to keep bringing you up. But there are people out there that are, haven't matured since high school, or they plateaued and they want to hold you back because they're worried that you're going to leave, so they're just going to sabotage you at every left. And that's a hard lesson of life. People are going to try to hold you back because they don't want you to go. So you need to be understanding, if you want to do something, your true friends will always be there. This is how you test your friend group to see who has your back or not. And as men, the only way you can show love and respect is through your actions. We're not kids. We can't just say, I'm sorry, I hurt you. I mean, I'm going to have to make it up to you. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I'm going to have to show by my actions to make it up to you and be better, but be a better version of myself tomorrow. And I'm going to have to make atones. And the thing is, it's up to the person that's been offended or hurt to say, you know what, I'm done with your shit. I'm going to walk away, or I accept your apology. And what are you doing when you make a mistake? You're submitting to someone else. That's another thing that we don't talk about with this alpha beta bullshit. There's a
lot of stuff we didn't talk about.
If you can't, if you're an alpha, you can't admit to your mistakes because that shows weakness. So how can you possibly grow as an individual if you can't admit your mistakes? I can't see that. This is where I can't justify the whole thing, alpha and beta crap, because if you can't submit or can't own up to your mistakes or ask for forgiveness, which is showing leadership, technically, it's one of those oxymorons. You have to be submissive to show leadership. How are you going to grow as a person if you can't admit to your own mistakes? You can't.
I don't know. Answer that for me. You
can't. So you have to submit. I would argue being vulnerable is more a sign of being a man and ownership than being alpha.
I mean, not to sound too what's the word? Like to sound too like wink wink, nudge nudge, but
Billy, we're gonna show up at your goddamn door and expect bowls of soup. Anyway.
I want my cookies. I want my biscuits.
I want soup.
No cookies at all.
You get cookies and biscuits. I get soup.
But the narcissist doesn't want to grow and won't admit mistakes. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that alphas are narcissists, but you can kind of get what I'm saying. Is a narcissistic component is quite evident in this sort of mentality of like, I'm infallible, I don't make mistakes, I will not submit to anyone ever, I'm perfect, and as a result, they don't want to grow.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the thing is, they don't have to grow because no one's pushing them to grow, and anybody that would push them, they either push them away or threw them into jail, in a sense that where they just ignored what they were going to say, or they killed that friendship because that was a threat.
Well, I mean, people are pushing them to grow, but they're resisting because to grow is to kill the narcissist. So it's kind of like a death warrant or a suicidal notion, So the narcissist, that's why they're so childlike as well. To grow is to take on responsibility, to be honest, to tell the truth. This is toxic or toxicity to the narcissist. It's like, keep that away from me. Last thing I want to do is grow.
So by that definition, would you say feminists are all narcissists?
Yes.
Because they have the same traits.
Yes. Yeah. I've been saying this to Good Mother for ages. We keep saying feminism came. I'm going, no, dearie, no, it's narcissism.
It is.
Good question.
Because my whole thing is the only reason why feminists are feminists because they don't want to submit to a man. That's the whole argument. Yeah. It's the fear of submission.
We're having great topics. We're having like multiple streams. Like we can go off into different tangents. Like I feel like each area of our conversation could be a whole stream of itself. But I'm gonna have to like shut it down in a few minutes, if that's all right with you.
Okay. Yeah.
No, you do you,
Billy. It is definitely getting all over the place, but
no, but yes, it's great.
I agree as well. It's
flowing. It's also it's flowing into each other, but it also shows how interconnected all these different topics and subject matters are connected. Which is like, as we were saying earlier, like we want to avoid the simplicity of things. So this, I feel at least anyway, that this is a mature conversation to be had. You know, yes, we are sort of navigating all over the place, but it's not we're not bumbling about. It's not for no apparent reason. It's because it matters.
I think it would be nice if it came back to the simplicity between men and women, and because that's important. But for whatever reason, that's been completely divided.
Well, it's divided because certain groups want to control another group. Okay, so, and then it's a clash between who wants to take power. So right now we're in a crossroads where male authority is demonized and women's authority has been, proselytized. Okay, so in a world where anytime a male takes authority is going to be demonized, and a woman taking the same amount of authority gets, pestilized. This is the shit that's happening because we're right now we're kind of in a flux time period. We're in conflict. Okay, we're in a transition period where male authority is getting basically passed on to women, and we're in this transition period. And anytime you're in a transitional period, there's always going to be conflict, and there's going to be turmoil because the old guard wants to keep it the way things used to be, and the new guard wants to take on this new role. However, any kind of experience from another generation where they say we tried this in our past and it failed, and they're not listening, and it's just passing the brick down to the next generation. Like if you notice, most feminists, do they listen to their parents? Do they listen to authority? Do they listen to their elders?
No, they're what's the word for it? I mean, they're encouraged.
Yeah. Also, during turbulent times, I mean, with a little bit of crowd psychology thrown in here, is it creates a gateway opportunity for manipulative people to take advantage. When everyone is all disorientated and there's chaos all around, that's an opportune moment for a dictator or a tyrant to slip in there and start taking control.
Christ. Yeah, they show up.
I would argue it's more of a cult, because I consider feminism as a cult. It's not, because the tenets are of a death cult. It's literally asking for the destruction of society because of feelings. Okay, so you're dealing with cult personality. You're dealing with like I like to call it the Star Wars approach. You're either with us or you're against us. Like people that talk in absolutes are in a freaking cult.
Well, a slight pushback, but not really, because normally a cult would be defined as having like a figurehead or a leader. But I think in what we're seeing like the viper with 7 heads. So it's still there is still a forefront person in a way, an entity of sorts, but it's got multiple heads.
But you're still the leader of feminism is the destruction of the man. So the person demonizing is the person that they're pestalizing at the same time, because feminism is taking all male authority away. So what are they envious of? Male authority. So what happens when they slay? No one talks about this argument. What happens when they finally slay the evil man?
I would have to agree more with Billy here.
No, but
I mean, because these motherfuckers will not go away. No matter what you say to them, no matter how you call them out, no matter how much you make them look like a fucking idiot.
The feminists will probably call men like the cult. It's like kind of like who's the cult here? Sort of like, is the MGTOW the cult kind of thing? You hear that sometimes being said, but it's with the feminism. It's like you occasionally get someone who is spearheading the charge. They get kind of out, they get exposed, or they get taken down or whatever, and there's always someone to fill in the role. But it's like an NPC sort of thing, because it's basically the same person, just a different form.
Yeah, all these goddamn sock accounts. I mean, all this. I mean, Christ, even One Fast Stack right now, somebody cloned his account, and they're going around, talking shit. And
you got someone backstage called Bandit. Bandit, are you here twice? Have you logged out or something? You there, Bandit?
Oh, hopefully he didn't get fucking cloned.
No, I don't know what happened.
Oh, I'll boot the other Bandit out then.
Clone lost connection, so I don't know why I'm showing there twice, but I'm here. But
well, glad to have you back, bro.
What I was trying to say is, feminism to me is a cult because they pestilize a man. So when they finally slay that man figure, guess what happens? It becomes a death cult. Because if there's no more demon to slay, what's the point of feminism? It collapses onto itself. So when they win, they lose. Because if there's no male authority, they're not going to be taken care of, and then their biological for kids goes away, and then they hate themselves. And what happens when a woman only hates themselves? They either drink themselves to death or they commit suicide.
Brother, you sound like a young guy, and you don't understand what happens down the road, or what can happen down the road. It becomes very different. It becomes very different.
Well,
now I
I've been doing a lot of studies on this.
Hold on. I'm not quite done. What you say is very important, and you are a very smart person, but it gets very different down the road. So just be expecting that.
Because I'm seeing it right now I'm an older millennial. I missed Gen X by like 2 years. I'm an older millennial. So when I'm seeing the people around my age that took the feminism route that are pushing almost 40, they are regretting all their decisions because they're angry because they felt like they were lied to their whole lives, and now they're understanding to be submissive now, but it's already too late to have kids. And then they start questioning their whole selves, and they get into depression, and they're in the, I have to walk these people off the cliff, because their whole lives they were told one thing when it was really the opposite. And that's the whole thing. That's what I mean by it's a death cult. Feminism only works when you're young, because you still have the narcissistic pull of male attention. Once women stop getting the attention when they're older, feminism dies real quick, because all their options dry up, and now they're stuck being alone.
Then I would say it doesn't work at all. Like, not even when they're young.
I agree, but I'm saying that they don't feel the results.
Yeah. Okay.
They get bailed out of their bad decisions until they don't get the male attention anymore.
I mean,
and then we throw a goddamn fit.
I mean, to add to it a little bit, we were talking about moments ago about how it's pretty much narcissism is feminism. They're saying now that the wall, the wall defeats the wall. The wall, in a way, is age. You hit the wall, you hit in your age, and disorders get worse with age. So if the wall is hitting them at a younger age now, And bearing in mind it's all sort of self-defeating as well. Yes, in one hand, narcissism is more successful, air quotes successful, when you're younger, because people haven't wised up and caught on and everything like that. But with exposure and all this other stuff factoring in, it's getting harder for them to carry on being either a narcissist or a feminist if they want to split hairs and distinguish themselves separately. But either way, either if they are a feminist or what, whatever their shenanigans they're up to, it's getting harder and harder. And the effects, if you look into the aging narcissist, you start seeing those dynamics playing out at an earlier age. Like with Angler's experience, he could talk about this more. Normally it would be like the ages of sort of 60.
Jesus Christ!
The real horrors of start to show. But we're seeing the great cometh. That wouldn't have happened at the who is the one? What age demographic is the great coming from? It's coming from the sort of 40-year-olds.
Yeah, you're getting late.
Yeah, it's getting later and later and later. I don't even know what to call it anymore. Is it the age that's running them into the wall, or their fucking behavior?
It's always behavior, because because honestly, what stress does to the body ages a person more than anything else. So, prime example, you could be a healthy woman that is happy, has kids, and you can see it with new mothers and everything else. Their chemistry changes. Someone that just had their kid, you always look at them. Their cheeks are all rosy. They're all happy. They might be tired, but they have an aura. It's like, oh, this is a nice person. That they seem to be happy. Now, if you see the opposite, where someone's not happy, making bad decision after bad decision, they've aged probably 5 to 10 years over their contemporaries just because of their bad decisions.
Yeah.
And that's why they say the wall is the wall. It's biology. So you can speed up the process by making bad decision over bad decision. And that's stress taking years off your life. This is why stress is so important, how you can manage stress.
Yeah.
Because stress is a killer. It ages you more than anything else. And then the other thing people don't realize is, and I'd love to have this being one of your topics, Billy, would be, what about the correction to feminism? Because it's going to happen. You're going to have the pendulum switch the other way, where instead of being ultra liberal society is now, it's going to be ultra conservative. I mean, liberals technically are not wrong when they say they fear like the Handmaid's Tale. Like, honestly, pushback from feminism could lead. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm not going to fear and go into their fears, but it could go that route. It could be where you have to go ultra traditional, and then you're forced to have kids at 20.
So if you want a glimpse into what this could look like, then look into what's been happening in the air quote survivor healing recovery community. That's like a base model to give you a sort of a starting point if you want to have a look into not a crystal ball, but like as a model of like the counter, the anti-narc kind of thing. That basically they're no different. And yeah, we see this in the manosphere sort of spaces where they're saying they're conservative, they're saying they're traditional, they're saying they're red-pilled, but basically it's the chameleon with a new color skin.
The chameleon. Thank you.
So in some ways, it's actually more dangerous or covert. More discernment will be required going forward, because they'll all be singing a different tune, and you won't know who is true and who is false.
I'm with Billy here. It's going to continue to get worse. It's going to continue to get worse.
I was never a feminist, and you'd be like, "Oh, I got a picture of you dressed up like a unicorn." I'd be like, "Ah, no, that's okay. I was always conservative from the beginning. I was always on your side." And it's just like,
Because I only mentioned this. I mentioned this because we're going down the, you know, the good times are coming to an end. Bad times are coming. Everybody sees the writing on the wall. Bad times are coming.
The lollipop trail, the lollipop trail, the lollipop trail.
So people are going to start acting more like chameleons, but at the same time, the laws are going to go anti-feminist because remember, in order for a group to take legitimacy, they have to discount the old practice so they can legitimize their own practice. So feminism in the future is going to be lambasted as the cause of all the problems. I mean, this is how human nature works, at least in my opinion. They're going to lambast that methodology as saying feminism was the reason why low birth rates and how society collapsed because of low birth rates. So we're going to blame feminism. Anybody that's a feminist is going to be, quote unquote, hung for their crimes of being a feminist. And then you're going to see ultra conservatism take over.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, there's still going to be these goddamn narcissists and sociopaths making the decisions about it.
So the one of the keys here, or one of the tools to remind yourself is like you're saying before with behavior, is to see what is motivation, what is driving this behavior, because whatever color or skin the chameleon changes or adopts, underneath is still the same. They still have, fundamentally narcissism is about servicing emotional needs. So it's highly emotionally based. So whatever kind of gimmick or spiel they're trying to put out there, there'll still be that emotional need at its core. So there'll still be elements of persuasion and manipulation to get control, to get you to try to recruit you. Those sort of themes will continue.
But I think men have learned something.
That should be the focus. That should be the focus.
But I think men have learned
not
something.
Enough of us are, I don't think enough of us are privy to stuff like that. And our friend Billy the Goat here is so goddamn smart. I love listening to his content.
Well, the thing comes down to this, though. No. Feminism only works when men are ignorant. Okay? There's so many people calling out female behavior right now and toxic female behavior that you can't put the rabbit back in the hat anymore. And this next generation is going to be the first generation where men in their teens are going to have a better understanding of women than women are going to understand men.
Oh Christ, I hope so.
It's already happening. You already see men not falling for this whole bullshit. Why do you think
I'll tell you a little funny kind of joke. I was chatting to one of the dads at the school, and I was saying that in the class you got the girl clique, and there's a boy clique. Now there's more girls in the class than there are boys, but they still got their own little boy and girl clique, right? And I said, there's something about the boys that has a bit of innocence about them. They're still boisterous, they're still gallivanting, they're still up to their mischief or whatever, but there's an innocence about it. And then this other dad says to me, yeah, because when the boy says they're going to push you down the stairs, they're going to do it. But when the girl says they're going to push you, they kind of whisper like push him down the stairs.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
The girls are plotting. They're
Yeah.
But the thing is now, with the internet and all these channels now it's mainstream now for men are calling out women and calling out their behavior.
Oh, there's so many things. What, Odyssey? What are some of the other ones? I mean
there's TikTok Shorts. My whole point is that the knowledge is out there now, so you can't put the rabbit back in the hat anymore. The tools that women use to control men, all of them are now taken away. So in order for women to gain that type of man, they're going to have to change their game plan. which is going to open up another can of worms for men because all the methods we used to use are going to be outdated. But like I said, it's a transition period. Like,
Sure.
women are going to have to start, and you can see it now, they're starting to become more traditional. Like, if you look at high school now, like, I mean, it's completely different from like the 90s or even the 2000s. Like, before, like, the amount of people having premarital sex in high school was like, 40%. It's now dropped down to like single digits.
See,
No.
Yes, it has.
No.
Bandit, where you're saying like, we want to have a discussion about the.
Are you saying that teenagers are not having sex
compared to their parents? Yes. It's it's statistical fact. They're not having the amount or the frequency as their parents did.
How do you know this?
There's so many ways. I mean, one thing the internet has allowed people not to be as close as they used to be. The lack of interpersonal skills is a hell of a lot worse than the previous generation. You can look at as most of the people having sex, men-wise, are the top 5 to 10%. So by law, 90% of men are not having the same amount of success. High school-wise, I'm just telling you, the amount of people, they've done studies. You can look up the studies. The amount of people, the amount of the kids that are having premarital sex in high school has dropped significantly since the early 2000s.
Now, one thing, I'm not pissed about that. I think that's great news. I hope it's not for, like bad mental health reasons or anything like that. But fucking A, yeah, I'm glad that these kids are not.
But a lot of them are saying they're waiting till marriage. So that's what I'm saying. Traditional values, we might not be seeing it as, but I'm saying the generation after generation Z, that generation is the most conservative generation in like the last 100 years. Like the polar shift has happened. Because remember, what do you do as your kid? Your kid is always going to do the counter of what you are. So if millennials are just liberal shitholes en masse, what are their kids going to do? They're going to rebel against their parents. And how do you rebel against your parents? You become an ultra conservative.
Yeah,
and the generation after them, they're going to be ultra liberal because they're going to react against their parents.
Well, I try not to put liberal or conservative ideas on my child. I just try to talk to him.
I know, but I'm saying it as a whole. I mean, look, look at this. Boomers that had to fight during, or the lost generation had to fight during World War II. They created the boomers. The boomers became freaking hippies. The generation after the hippies became the 80s, and that was ultra masculine.
Yeah.
Their kids, Gen X became ultra masculine. Like, look at the 80s movies. Like, you had like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and you had supermodels. And that was like the ideal. No, I'm just saying that was the ideal man and woman.
No, I get it.
And then the reaction to their conservative parents was the millennials. Gen X became the millennials, and then the generation after the millennials would be the Gen Zers. Their kids are going to be ultra conservative. Because you always remember, it's the punk rock approach. It's, I'm going to be a contrarian. I'm going to do what's not cool. So what's not cool right now? Being conservative. Yeah. So punk rock right now is being conservative, not being liberal.
But once upon a time, it was the most liberal fucking thing.
Yes. In the world. But this is what I'm talking about. This is you got to understand the way the generations work. And once you understand that each generation is a reaction to their parents, it's the opposite of their parents, everything starts making sense.
Yeah.
Like fashion almost. So, gentlemen, I think we're going to close it up here, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been
Billy, thank you for having it open and allowing us to give, what is it, the three of us Yeah, the three of
Well,
us.
let's not forget Truth Anchor, who was here earlier as well.
Okay. But just for allowing us to all have this conversation. And thank you.
It's nice talking to everybody.
Oh, it's great having you on. It's been great having this conversation. So many gems and nuggets I feel were in here. And I think it opens up conversation even further, like branching out. So, and everyone in the chat that's been following along, thank you for doing
Definitely catch everybody around.
Yeah, until for the next one. So, from all of us here, have a good evening and
nice talking to you, Billy and Angler.
Thank you, Bandit. Thank you, Angler. Thank you, Truth Angler.
Bandit. Good conversation, bro.
Yep, and I will see everybody Monday.
Billy, always a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. And likewise, sentiments and sunshines and rainbows, everybody.
All right.
Well, until next time.
Till next time.
Okay. Till next time.